Oh, one of the things I never considered
Mm.
was that Saul, King Saul,
Yeah.
his dad was a hybrid.
What?
So King Saul is like the kings of the earth. I know. He mentions that in passing, and I go,
Wait, pause. What? I've never heard that.
when he mentioned it, he just kind of said it and then kept going. And I was like, wait a minute. So
What?
when he appoints King Saul, he's like, and Samuel's like, oh man, did I mess up? And God's like, no, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me. But they're
Yeah.
rejecting the true God for other Elohim.
I could see that. Yeah,
Because
I mean,
that's
because
the
Israel is
king.
like they want a king like everybody else. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the
yeah.
kings
Yeah.
of
I
the
see.
earth were descendants of the Elohim,
Yeah.
of the
True.
of the
Because
Ben
that was
Elohim.
their royal blood.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Saul's dad was,
Oh no way.
yeah, which makes perfect sense why, like the tormenting spirit,
Yeah,
it makes perfect sense why he was of the stature he was.
that's true. Because he is huge.
And it also makes sense why he's not involved in any of the bloodline.
Right.
So, like, technically, the first true king of Israel is David, even
But
though the technical chronological king is Saul.
So what do you do with because Samuel tells Saul that if he had obeyed the laws of God, he would have established his kingdom forever.
hmm I don't know what to do with that.
Okay, I was just curious.
No, I just mean like
If you thought of that, yeah.
no, I hadn't, and I hadn't got into any of it at all
Oh,
because
okay.
when he mentioned it, I was like, why have I never read that before
Yeah, I've never heard that before
or seen that? Because
noticed
it mentions who his dad is.
Wow.
Because the Bible does that.
Yeah.
It tells you who their father is.
And I just went
it
through
tells
King
you-
Saul recently too.
Yeah, it
And I never
tells you
picked
who
up
their
on it.
fathers are because of stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, because that's bloodlines are important.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
insane. Like, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that always bothered me when people make fun of just the genealogies in the Old Testament.
yeah,
They're like, oh, it's so boring and stupid. It's like, well, yeah, it is boring, but like,
yeah,
it's also incredibly important. One, to establish who Christ is in the end.
right.
The fact that he came from a pure bloodline.
Yeah,
But on the other hand, is like, who were these people? Where did they come from?
yeah.
Like, this tells you everything about them.
Well, and like it's how you would talk to somebody else. Like,
Yeah.
So when they read the genealogies, it was like, yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
But he brings up like in the like one of the similarities in the Torah to Mesopotamian texts is like one of them is like there's 10 generations between creation and the flood.
Mm.
And that shows up in Mesopotamian texts too, that it's 10
Oh, wow.
generations. So like there's a lot of timeline stuff that overlaps. Another thing he mentions
That's
offhand, and this is just kind of jumping around in this idea. Another thing he kind of mentions offhand is, or no, this was somebody else, but, and I hadn't thought about this, but, so Nimrod
Mhm.
is either becomes a mighty warrior, a mighty man, or yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that happens.
Because I know he's at least I think is it Maccabees that talks about Nimrod in more detail.
I don't know.
I can't remember. It's another apocryphal text that talks more about him,
Okay.
and they're pretty much like, yeah, he's like a Nephilim basically.
Yeah, or he becomes one through ritual,
Yeah,
which is
Yeah.
that's a whole other topic.
which kind of opens up like Egyptian pharaohs ideas as well.
Yeah, it makes sense in the
Because there's a
sacrificial
few of them
rituals.
that people, the alien side of people, are like, oh, these ones were aliens.
Yeah. You're talking about the ones that like either they reigned for 60,000 years or 6,000 years?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, that's kind of
Like,
crazy.
this is wild.
The funny thing is Tim Mackey actually mentions that at one point. He's like, yeah, depending on which text you read in the translation of it, this guy either lived for 60,000 years or he said like 40,000 years or 6,000 years. It's like, it's like that's a wild difference.
Either one. Still insane.
Yeah, good point, actually.
But one's more insane.
Yeah, good point. Because reigning for 6,800 years is still wild. But
that's still, 60 times someone's normal lifespan?
Yeah, he also gets into the 120, the age 120.
I've been curious about that one myself.
So,
because I recently was rereading it, I was like, this doesn't really say like what I thought it said.
So here's something interesting.
Yeah.
What he says is that it mentions how old Moses is before the flood, and then it mentions how old he is after the flood or when he dies.
Yeah.
That number is 120 years.
Oh.
So when he mentions 120, he does it right before building the ark and the flood.
Yeah.
Which Tim Mackey kind of mentions, like, it could be that the 120 number is man will only live another 120 years. And by man, I mean everyone on the earth.
Oh, interesting.
That it's actually a time marker to the flood.
Oh.
Not an age marker to humanity.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. He mentions a couple things like that I'm like, oh, that actually makes way more sense.
And actually, it makes sense
because it lines
too,
up.
Because wasn't there someone that lived to be like 121?
Oh, I don't know. That's really funny, though.
I know there was something random.
Like, yes, he did it.
Because I think there was something.
It was definitely a lady, though.
It was.
Okay.
Men don't live that long.
No.
We're too stupid.
We just don't treat ourselves well.
No, it's so true.
But
I love how we'll know something's bad for us, but because we haven't had immediate consequences,
yeah,
we're like, oh, we'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm realizing that even now. So not that I'm in like horrible pain or anything, because I'm not.
Yeah.
But I've definitely noticed like, oh yeah, I've definitely done some things to myself.
Yeah, that I can't reverse.
It's too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that happened 6 years ago, and yeah, there's that old injury.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah. But yeah, he mentions a bunch of different things that I thought, man, that actually like lays out like that's cool. So Tim Mackey, the Bible Project, all those sessions on Genesis 6. It's really cool. Good. It's really good.
I'm excited to look through those.
Yeah. But I was gonna say about Nimrod.
Oh yeah.
So Nimrod, what was I? Where were we at? We were talking about Saul. So So with Nimrod, he was now I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but yeah, I don't know. You want to start?
Yeah, let's do it.
Did we already start?
I was like, oh man, I feel like
maybe this is a pre-roll.
It's like a cold open.
I think you could use some of it. Just jump straight into so Nimrod.
Could you imagine if you click on the episode, no intro, just straight Nimrod?
Yeah. I don't know. I think you should.
I'm actually considering it.
Yeah. But I wish I could tie up the Nimrod. Oh, Second Temple. So Nimrod essentially builds Babel.
Yeah.
And the descendants of Babel, he basically is the founder of Babylon.
Yeah, yeah.
So later, the Israelites are taken to Babylon. And Babylon, as descendants of Babel and Nimrod, have a lot of the Mesopotamian language. They have a lot of the stories there. And so Second Temple Judaism is 100% influenced by Mesopotamian text.
That's true.
Like the way that they describe certain things.
Yeah.
The thing I'm the most interested in is what did they experience? So if they're with Nebuchadnezzar, and he was doing practices like Nimrod was,
Mm.
then what did they experience in Babylon that was physical confrontation from the spiritual into the natural?
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
like mainly because like
Hmm.
I think my well, we'll get into this because that actually kind of sets up I think where we're going.
Oh, sick.
Okay.
That is a good intro. You guys had no idea. Welcome back to the
Tipsy Theology podcast.
Oh, you read my mind. This is episode number 54.
Nice.
We're locking it in.
Okay.
We've been crushing out some episodes lately.
Crushing them out.
I find it midway I forget the word I'm supposed to say.
It doesn't matter.
And I just insert a new one.
I think that's how words are invented.
Yeah, that's probably true. All of every lingo from every generation.
Yeah, like you start to learn a new language, and so you start mixing the old one with the new one.
Yeah.
We're just making stuff up.
That's all we're doing. You know, it's funny. So I never thought about it, but it's like, okay, millennials, we definitely had like our slang.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Gen Z's got theirs. And it was so confusing at first, but now it's like I feel like I got like a handle on some of it.
Okay.
And then Gen Alpha came out. I was like, I'm lost.
What was their release date? Gen Alpha?
Were they COVID?
You said they came out.
Yeah, that was their release date. Their album dropped.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think as you say that, I don't think I've ever thought about the fact that like the way that you know there's a new generation is that there's words that you haven't heard before.
Yeah.
But the thing is like in your generation, that stuff happens organically.
That's true.
So like
Yeah.
you just start using phrases. You're not like
It's like a
looking for
natural
the
progression.
Yeah, you're not looking for the popular phrase.
That's true.
It just comes out. It's like
Yeah.
what is actively happening. Like universally people start using like they evolve to this word that evolves to
Yeah.
this word.
Yeah.
So like when you start going, "Oh, I've never heard that word before." And you hear 20 people saying it, you're like, okay, they're the next generation.
Yeah. I found the young
They
people.
Yeah, they took over. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it happened. It was actually after I turned 30.
Okay.
And someone was talking. They said like a full sentence to me. And I
Is this English?
that's what happened. I was like, one more time? And they said it again exactly the same way.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, one more time, please.
Can you define terms for me?
Yeah, I was like, I've never felt so old in my life. And it happened to be right like a week after I turned 30.
That's awesome.
was
That
like,
would happen.
What's happening to me?
You just automatically lose a frequency range
Yeah,
just
actually,
on your birthday.
I've been wondering about that because I know that
Yeah.
there's obviously some degradation,
Yeah.
but I haven't noticed what it is yet.
Yeah.
Because like you were, so with the TV back here, you were saying you can't hear that anymore, right?
I have to get really close to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm happy because I can still hear it. But I'm waiting for the year to happen or the day when I no longer hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some listener going, yes, can you please turn the TV off?
Like I've stopped listening because I can hear it
The
in the
TV
mic.
is so loud. Yeah, I can't hear it at all.
You know what, there might be something to that. Where
To
I'm
what?
editing it
Oh.
and I think I edited the TV out. Someone's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah. Well, you can't edit out the things you can't hear.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, there's definitely bad frequencies.
Yeah.
That's why it's so hard to like be a mastering engineer for
Oh,
music.
yeah.
Because you have to listen through so many different speakers so that you know that you're like, all right, am I hearing all of the frequency ranges?
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
find like a 10-year-old and play it for them.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, it's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Oh man, didn't like grocery stores or some establishments used to do that where they didn't want young kids, so they'd play like a high annoying frequency
I have no
that
idea.
only they could hear.
That sounds like
That's
some
a conspiracy
CIA
theory
stuff.
that I've always held on to.
Oh, like they just didn't want kids in the store?
Yeah, or like wanted like they just didn't want them there. But they're like I only these kids could hear this frequency, but adults couldn't.
Well, then how would they know that they're doing it?
I guess they hired a young kid.
Well, I mean, you can
I
read
don't
the
know.
frequency ranges.
That's true.
They hired a young kid.
Can you make the most annoying sound that only
And the
you can
kid's
hear?
like, no, I don't hear it. Oh, yeah, I definitely hear it.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if that's true, but
I don't either.
I want to believe that it is.
I do wonder sometimes. So, like, where we live, the Publix that's right next to your house
Yeah.
is actually the warmest Publix in our city.
Explain. Like temperature warmest?
Yes, 100%.
Really?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, I used to work there. I worked there for like two
Oh, wow.
2.5 years. And one of the things that I noticed is around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone was so angry. And I was like, why is everyone
way.
so... Yeah, and I would start my shift at like 3:30.
So you're coming in fresh and they're
Yeah.
all dehydrated.
Yeah, well, and it's... Yeah, and then I would go into other Publixes, and I'm like, why is everyone so happy? It's like, my Publix is not like this until it gets like nighttime.
That's crazy.
And then I started to notice that, like, oh, it's actually really cold in the other like places.
yeah, so they don't get super hot and cranky.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're intentionally doing that. I mean, I know that one hasn't been remodeled in a long time,
True.
so maybe that's why. But I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I just remember realizing that. And the thing is like, I am a person that like starts to notice things like that.
Yeah.
But the only reason I noticed it to that much detail is because I worked there.
You're just there all the time.
Yeah, so when I went to other Publixes, I was like, this one is not as warm. Like, this one's way colder.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which in general, if it's cold, people are going to be nicer, more friendly, and they're also going to move faster.
Oh, if it's colder?
Yeah, because you're not going to sit still when it's cold.
Oh, true. You
Yeah.
want to keep moving.
Right. So,
And it's funny you say that because with that fan off in this room, it does get warmer in here. So
Yeah.
if we start getting mad,
you get sleepy.
you just...
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they did that when I had to take my SATs.
They made it cold.
They made it cold in that room.
I think that's why classrooms are all tile.
Oh, to
Like
keep
cinder block and
I
tile.
don't want you to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost had hypothermia, so it was a different kind of sleep.
Well, you were in the Midwest.
Yeah,
so-
it's true.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, in Florida, it's like everything has to be cinder block and tile so that
Yeah,
there's like
true.
moisture in the material
Yeah.
so that you don't just die.
And even then, it's still boiling.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it literally is boiling because of the moisture in the...
True. What are we drinking today?
So I picked the...
Yeah.
Yeah, because as you called me 2 episodes ago, I guess I'm a dry boy.
The dry boy. And Trey did call you out on the last
I love
episode.
that. I'd
Yeah.
love to meet Trey.
You should. I think you guys would hit it off.
We need to do a 3-person
That would be fun.
podcast. Got to get another mic.
Oh, that'd be great. I do. I need to do some upgrades around here.
Yeah. Say Trey can bring his own mic.
You're just traveling around with your own mic.
Yeah. I'm sure people do that.
It's like a Grammy Award singer.
I mean, I
move
do.
Right there.
I do always have in-ears with me.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you have customs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm still rocking those Shures.
gotta do
I
what
need
you
to
gotta do.
upgrade. I need to upgrade.
I mean, you don't need to.
I need to.
It is healthier, but yeah.
Well, I feel like walking around like you, Evan, and Christian, because you guys have your customs, and I'm like, hey, guys.
Well, because you're not like your ears aren't designed to have stuff shoved into them all the time.
Because my ears do reject it.
Yeah.
They try to push them out throughout the
should.
set.
Yeah.
They should.
Yeah, they're supposed to.
It's because they don't sound as good. That
Yeah, your ears are like literally designed to keep things out.
makes sense.
That's what the hairs in your ears and like in your nose are designed to do.
Oh, yeah.
Like push everything out
Do you
or collect it so that it doesn't
Do you
go
ever
in.
notice how there's always that one nose hair that is just super long.
Today
it's
on
like,
nose hairs.
like you go in and you trim it, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I got them all. And then randomly a new one appears. It's twice as long.
I can't like I think I've trimmed nose hairs once because I just
Really?
can't handle it.
Lucky dog.
It's like cutting onions or
It kind
something.
of hurts. Yeah.
Well, it just like it's like hurts, tickles, and makes you cry. It's like all these things all at once.
It's just
I
like
don't
a
know.
necessity for me.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a necessity for everybody, and I
Yeah.
should do it a little bit more. But we're not here to talk about that.
No.
Okay, so what
It's
are
all
we
the
drinking?
detours we take.
All right, so here it is. Sponsored today by Starry.
You guys owe us money.
Here's the thing. We haven't talked about, because you saw me bring these in.
Yes.
There's a lot of condensation now, so here.
Ooh, thank you.
We probably should
they're
have
still
grabbed
cold, though.
napkins.
Do you want me to grab a napkin?
No, that's all right.
Okay.
Here's the thing. How come there wasn't a public service announcement or a conversation about the deceased Sierra Mist? So do you know
It's gone?
That's what this is.
Wait, really?
That's why I bought this.
No way.
So, okay. So
I will say I don't drink pop anymore.
okay.
And I
I
haven't,
figured that.
I haven't for probably 15 plus years.
Am I breaking a... You don't have to drink it.
I'll drink it.
Because I know people that are like...
I'll say I'm not like against it. I just don't really like it that much.
Yeah. No.
But it is fun because there are some times where
Let me be honest,
it just
guys.
hits sometimes. But most of the time
Yes.
it doesn't.
I get that.
So I'll say it that way. But so I didn't know that Sierra Mist was gone.
Okay, so that's my whole thing. And the thing is like I've kind of been ignoring it because I feel like they ignored us. Like, and the thing is like like I'm not really a news guy.
Yeah.
Like I literally like there were recent big events that happened.
Yeah.
And I found out because someone just mentioned it like the day after.
That's the news that you paid attention to?
Yeah, and I was like, wait, what? And then I actually went and looked up like what happened.
No way.
Yeah, because I just don't like. I don't know. My brain doesn't do well with that stuff.
With losing products?
No, with news.
Oh.
So I just don't receive news as much as possible.
Okay, that's probably healthy, honestly.
Well, I try to like. I actually do that like with my phone. Like my phone doesn't. The only time my phone buzzes, because who in the world uses a ringtone?
If I
think
hear
that's
my phone go off, I will throw it across the room.
That's definitely a millennial thing.
I think, yeah, everything's on silent.
Yeah, because it's like, who in the world wants to listen to a ringtone?
Yeah.
But anyways, because the ringtones.
But there was that small period where we did have custom ringtones and sounds like text tones.
Yeah, and then we
but
grew
that
up.
went away like 2 years after we got phones.
Well, smartphones. Like
True.
once
That's
smartphones
true.
came in, it was like, because like when you had a flip phone, it was like really hard to find or download a ringtone and then get it on there. So it was kind of like,
effort.
look what I did. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And then with like the iPhone and the Android, all that stuff coming out was a little bit like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like I could just
It's not
play a
special.
whole song out loud if I want. Like why would I need to do a ringtone? So yeah, but anyways,
true.
so Starry. Okay, so the Pepsi Cola company
Mm-hmm.
had its version of Sprite from the Coca-Cola company,
Yeah.
and that it was never like, in my opinion, like everybody's completely different. Pepsi products are sweeter, and Coke products are inherently not as sweet. It doesn't mean that they have less sugar in them. It just means that the actual taste is not as sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're a little bit drier in their taste. So that's why I brought this, because I feel like the last couple of times we've had drinks, we haven't talked that much in detail like you normally do.
It's true.
Um,
Well, it's because you made fun of me the one time.
the afterbirth. What's going on with the afterbirth of Starry? Wait,
Trey
we
made
do it together.
Oh, you're right. I thought that's where we were going. Trey made fun of me for that too, and I realized that that's something I say more often than not.
You're just walking around saying afterbirth.
Yeah, I used to know. I know that it's aftertaste,
But here's the thing.
but that's not what comes out of my mouth.
The other thing is like you also don't have kids,
That's true.
and like
It's not a reality for me.
but I don't know that I would ever use the word afterbirth. Just for any reason.
Yeah, that's it. Forever.
After experiencing kids being born.
You're like,
Yeah.
Wait, so is this Sierra Mist and just relabeled?
So that's what I don't know. I've never had it,
Oh, okay.
but apparently,
Because I've seen this before at like parties.
yeah,
And I just thought it was like a squirt kind of thing, like an off-brand,
that's another
pop.
one. Where is Squirt?
only in Mexican grocery stores.
Wild.
That's the only place I've seen it.
Okay.
And that's the only reason I knew that drink even existed
Okay.
was because of a Mexican family we knew growing up. And that's the pop they had.
Yeah, that's where it came. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that. But yeah, so just one day there was no Sierra Mist, and then there was Starry. But the way that they did it,
somebody's selling Sierra Mist for like $100 a can on eBay right now.
yeah, or in Mexico, like
Yeah,
it's not like. But my question is like, what happened? Why did they just rebrand? And maybe they did
Yeah.
it because we're literally on a podcast holding Starry.
That's true.
Like, it's not a bad marketing strategy to just say nothing and completely rebrand.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, maybe they
bold.
did. Maybe they did.
To all of our loyal fans out there,
Yeah, there was an email blast.
I should text them and see if they'll not text them. I'm going to email them.
I was gonna say-
I don't have their number.
I mean, you
see if
can't.
they'll sponsor this episode.
No. Scan info, call for info.
Oh, that's what we'll do.
Scan for info, call for info. We could call them right now if you want.
Live. Hey, you guys want to
Hey, yo,
sponsor
what
us?
happened to Sierra Mist?
Also, do you want to give me money?
Yeah. So
I love how you're more focused on.
I know.
I'm like, no, I want the money though.
yeah, I just feel like it's like that. That
We got to buy a mic for Trey, so we
I
need
know.
this. We
That-
need this.
it's like that politician you just never hear from again.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what happened to that person?
Yeah, I wonder, did Mountain Dew kind of get too popular?
No,
It
Mountain
just
Dew still
iced 'em
exists.
out? Oh, I know that did, but like, did it ice out Sierra Mist?
No, it's a completely different drink.
Oh wait, yeah, that's the Sprite thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because
yeah.
Sierra Mist is like Pepsi's answer to Sprite,
That's right. Yeah.
which that's always weird to me too. Is like that's the whole
And
thing
Mr.
with.
Pibb hung on tight.
Yeah, it's not bad.
No,
Mr.
but I'm
Pibb's not
saying
bad.
like that one's still around, but
That's
Sierra
true.
Mist we just tossed.
I did almost get Bargs, which is probably my favorite.
Bargs.
So Bargs is like the Coca-Cola root beer.
Oh.
What I was really looking for was IBC root beer,
That's good.
but it's hard to find. They have it at
the other
Publix.
one. That's the one with like the barrel on the front.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
yeah.
in a glass.
Yeah.
But I
What's
was
the one
gonna
with the bulldog.
the Bulldog.
Isn't there a root beer with like a bulldog?
I think that's Bargs.
Is that Bargs?
Or maybe it's not. I don't know. But
What's the other one?
yeah, no,
There's
the
a third
barrel.
one, isn't
The
there?
barrel is A&W.
Oh, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, IBC is the one that only comes in a glass bottle.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
the fancy one.
Yeah, I used to get because you can get them at Publix,
Mm.
but they aren't refrigerated, and so it's like
Oh,
it's
dang.
impossible to find them like in a convenience store or something.
Okay.
But anyways, so I was like, you know what? Because I can't find. Here's what I almost did. I almost got. My kids love these, but they're like the little juice bottles with like Disney characters on top. But they have like the suction straws, so I almost got those so that we had to like out of like Mickey Mouse's head or something. I probably shouldn't have said that because maybe I can do
That's
it next
a
time.
niche kink that we haven't explored on this podcast.
Yeah, too much afterbirth.
Too much after.
Yeah, but that's the one that I was like, that would be hilarious. But this
That
one
would
I
be
was
amazing.
like, no, like what happened to me? That's a whole conspiracy thing. Is like, why is no one talking about Sierra Mist?
gotta
What happened to
dig-
Sierra Mist?
Sierra Mist. What's
Where
the
are
deal?
you? I actually didn't mind Sierra Mist. And the funny thing is, like, when I saw this,
I don't even know if I've ever had it.
okay, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when I saw this, I was like, that's not fair. Like,
Yeah.
I'll never have my last Sierra Mist.
That's sad.
No one ever gave me a heads up.
We're gonna find you a Sierra Mist.
I do like Sprite, though.
Do you have you heard where it's like it tastes different depending where you get it and how you drink it?
Yeah, I mean, that's true, though, like in a can or a bottle.
Yeah, but
So-
even like someone will say McDonald's, theirs is like spicier than everyone else's.
Do you want to get into that?
There's a lot going on behind here.
So McDonald's straws are bigger.
Is that why?
It's part of the reason why. The other
So it
reason
allows
why.
more bubbles in?
So I actually know all this, which is unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate.
So
the YouTube histories that you've gone through.
no, I actually don't remember how I found this out, but so the straws are bigger, which
Okay.
means you get a bigger gulp.
Oh, okay.
So what you're
Yeah.
getting is it's more intensity. The other thing that they do is they have this proprietary process of shipping where, you know how like if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you've worked in restaurants, right? You know how like the
I wouldn't be a millennial if I didn't.
fair enough. But you know how like the fountain drinks at a restaurant, well, I guess like it depends on how fancy of a restaurant you worked at. They might
Oh,
not
we
have
have
had
fountain drinks.
Okay, but I guess you would still have
We
them in the
weren't that
back.
fancy.
Okay, but the carbonation, like you add basically syrup.
It was a steak and shake, by the way.
Nice. Then you definitely had this.
And then I worked at a nicer one later, but
Okay.
yeah.
That makes sense.
We have fountain drinks.
Okay.
For sure.
But so like they the syrups come in like a box with like a really
Yeah.
thick bag.
Yeah.
And then you tap into that and it adds carbonated water to it.
Yes.
And then that's how the fountain drink comes out. So that's like what every fast food restaurant does.
Mm-hmm.
But McDonald's has aluminum containers. So
really?
their syrups are held in aluminum containers.
Well, that'll definitely change it then.
Big time.
Yeah.
So it's crisper and then you're
wow.
getting more of it in every drink.
So that's gonna hit hard.
Yeah. And spicy is the
Wow.
right word.
Yes.
Like that's which is funny because I always like using that
Yeah.
because it's like not something you would attribute to a drink.
It's true.
It's like very spicy. Like, oh, what?
It's funny how many uses that word has.
Sure.
Actually,
But-
my sister has started doing that.
Okay.
Like, you know how little kids, like, it doesn't matter what it is. If they don't like it, it's too spicy.
Yes.
She'll
I
say
do
that
know
about stuff.
Okay.
We're like, hey, Susan, do you want to try? No, too spicy. Don't like it.
I love that. But yeah, so yeah, that's why McDonald's drinks are better. They're also Coca-Cola.
Makes sense.
And
Yeah.
Coca-Cola is like it is spicier.
Yeah.
Like Pepsi products are more rounded and sweeter.
Yeah, because they have different bubbles
Yeah.
as well.
So I think the Coca-Cola company
As
worked
a sparkling water aficionado.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I know a
think
thing or two about bubbles.
I think that the Coca-Cola company worked with McDonald's to like create
that makes sense.
like the best possible. So they actually do have an edge on that.
That's cool.
It is cool.
Wow.
So we're going to try Starry.
Let's try Starry. Let's see what this is about.
But the thing is I never bought it because I didn't really buy Sierra Mist.
It doesn't look like a pop. That's the other thing.
Okay, what does it look like?
It looks like an energy drink.
I
Like
get
that's
that.
what I think it is.
But I also like when you buy a can at a gas station,
Yeah.
it's always this big.
Oh wow. So they're always just giving you twice
No, like
as
even if you
much.
get a Coke, it's still this big.
Oh really? I
Yeah,
thought they were like half the size.
That's only if you go to a gas station where they go to Sam's and buy a crate. Or they go to Costco and they buy like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the only way you would do that. If they get it straight from
wow.
the manufacturer, then,
Oh, it comes in these
then it's
16
this
ounce-
size.
Really?
Yeah. So like, cause like, like
I'm learning so much.
if you go to, I don't know why I know all this stuff.
We just tapped into some hidden knowledge.
To be fair, our city though is a distribution hub. For,
That's true.
For like Hungry Howie's,
Yeah.
Publix was founded here.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, there was a Coca-Cola plant here too, wasn't there?
there was
For
actually right
manufacturing.
where our church was. There was a
Yeah.
distribution center. That was Pepsi though for that one.
Oh, that's
But-
Pepsi. Okay.
But everybody, and now there's like a massive Amazon hub, like
Yeah.
right outside the city. So
yeah, true.
there's so much distribution that happens in this town that like I think that's why. And then I worked for Publix, so I was just like asked all
just
the
around
questions.
it, yeah.
But
Oh, that's fascinating.
yeah, so the same way like at Publix you would have vendors come in
Yeah.
and the vendors would actually stock the shelves. So they would come in or like bigger products you would get in. Like a lot of times you'll go to Publix and there's like a Pepsi guy actually putting the Pepsi on the shelf.
Yeah.
It's usually not the stock clerks at Publix.
Interesting.
So they do the same thing at like higher end convenience stores, which would be
Wow.
like 7-Eleven.
Okay, yeah.
But if you go to like
That's cool.
a non-chain gas station, they'll just go to Sam's
Just
and
buy a bunch and then
yeah. So then you get the small cans
which explains why their prices are so high too.
at
They got to
the
offset the
100%.
Sam's price. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So all right, we ready?
Let's do it. Oh, Blake's some too. That was crisp.
That sounded amazing.
It really did. I should bleep these out for the free episode and make that like a Patreon exclusive. You get to hear the crack.
That would be awesome. Yeah, it's just silent. Like what happened?
It's like, I need it.
Um,
That could be good content. What do you guys think about that? Would you pay for that?
are we trying
They
it?
wouldn't. Yeah, let's try.
My mouth is watering.
I like to give it the sniff first. I'm gonna treat it like any other drink I would.
Should I?
Yeah. What? Ooh. I just got tingly.
Had to open the gate.
What are your thoughts? What's the? Does it have an oaky afterbirth?
It does not. But it does taste exactly like Sierra Mist. What do you think? You also don't drink soda.
That's right. Yeah.
But because it's Pepsi, you're probably like, that's so much sugar. Because it's a ton of sugar.
I say it tastes kind of syrupy.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
that's
there's a little
the
bit of like
sugary.
a thickness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just Pepsi stuff.
That's fair. But I do know what you're saying about the bubbles too, because they're definitely they don't have these tight little like. That's a terrible. But it's kind of like
It doesn't have
they
tight
they
bubbles.
kind of like pop for you. Like you don't have to force it.
That's awesome.
Man, this is why I can't describe drinks around this guy.
No, I love it.
No, it's great.
Because I think in so much detail about everything else. I mean, I literally just, yeah. But I will say, I intentionally
it's not like a bold flavor though.
No, it's not.
It's very subtle.
Yeah. And the flavor goes away quick.
Yeah.
So like the aftertaste is like almost not there.
Yeah.
It's like, it kind of like, it feels like I need to brush my teeth.
Yeah, that's actually one of the main reasons I don't like drinking pop.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Because I feel like my entire mouth gets coated in sugar. And it's like...
Well, that's literally what's happening.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to describe that feeling because it gives you like this weird like
Yeah.
feeling.
This whole episode may just be about this. All right, here's this really quick. Here's our other.
Ooh.
See, the thing is,
You're sugaring me up.
the thing is I'm also a candy guy, and that's a problem. But have you ever had this?
No, but
You've never had this?
Okay. So on top of that too, I'm not like a big candy guy either.
Like, this is funny
It's
because
so
this
funny.
is like the most random, like, it really looks like when you went into the convenience store in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it was
that's
just
true.
like, what are these things?
Like doesn't matter, they're bright colors.
It's like the guy in the back made it.
Yeah,
No,
it's funny. Like these are things that I would never buy,
I know.
but I'm happy to have them.
Well, so the thing that's really cool about convenience stores to me is that they do carry things you can't buy at Walmart.
That's true.
Like, they carry things where you're like, who is supplying this?
And you're like some guy in 1985.
But I think that there's actually like a convenience store distribution center that like they can get
And they have
stuff
like exclusive
distributed.
deals.
Yeah, because you know how like, you know how there's like snack or candy machines?
Yeah,
There's actually people that own those machines,
true.
and then they source them and then they stock them.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's a place that they're getting all that stuff from. So I think it's like bulk type stuff. Like, yeah, I don't
sense.
know. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. So Reese's Nutrageous bar. This was one of my favorite candy bars, like growing up,
That's awesome.
because I really like peanut butter and chocolate. But this also has like, it has peanuts in it and it has caramel. So it's like a Reese's. It's like a Reese's cup inside of a Snickers bar.
Ooh,
But instead of nougat, it's Reese's, like
that's
peanut
kind
butter.
of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they didn't have
That
this
sounds
for a
pretty
while.
awesome.
I couldn't find them for a while. Was that you or me?
That was me. I get the gurgles.
It's all those big bubbles.
Those big bubbles coming back to attack me.
The tight bubbles are better. Bubbles. Bubble.
Bubbles.
Yeah. So, yeah. I might eat this also.
Yeah, let's take a bite.
Okay.
Tell the people what we're tasting here. You're spoiling
People
them.
either really like this or they don't at all.
It's true.
I think I don't at all.
It doesn't really do anything for me, but I like that it exists.
It kind of hurts my ears.
Yeah.
So if you're like me, I'm sorry. But also if you're just listening and not watching, then
But if you do like it, you're getting spoiled right now. And
That's true.
you owe us money.
yeah. So that's the other thing about convenience store chocolate is that it always kind of looks like it has a film on it
Yeah,
because it's
probably does.
probably been cold and hot and cold and hot.
That's true.
So that's how you know it's good
It's
for you.
melting and refreezing and
Yeah.
yeah. It smells like a a Butterfinger
What?
on the top, like just smelling the top straight.
You're right.
That's what it smells like.
That's weird. It's not amazing.
This all took me by surprise. Every chew was a new
I
experience.
know that's because it kind of has like a Baby Ruth
yeah.
feel, which I like Baby Ruths.
But then the peanuts kind of give it that Snickers feeling.
Yep.
And
With
then,
the caramel,
yeah.
but
And
there's
then I'm
there's not much
expecting
caramel.
I'm expecting like the nougat or like a cracker,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just peanut butter. And it's like, whoa. It blew all of my expectations, and I knew what I was getting into. That's good. Dang. Yeah, that's a good time.
It is a good time.
Dang,
It's a nutrageous time.
It's outrageous. I don't know who gets to name these things.
Well, if I'm the dry boy, then I'm gonna bring candy and soda.
I love it.
like
do
I'm
you-
5 years old.
What do you, before we really hop into it, and you guys love this.
I think we were already
Because-
in it.
Yeah, we kind of started. That's why we're spending time here.
Okay, yeah. This is the middle.
Yeah, which I could think it's fun because it's like, I feel like we haven't had a lot of time in the podcast to chat like this, so
True.
it's a good way for people to get to know you a little better too,
I don't know if they
which
want
I
that.
like. I like it. I don't. Oh, sorry, it's more premium content. I don't like to show my feet on camera.
Oh yeah.
Patreon only. I'm just gonna censor it out.
She keeps saying that.
Yeah,
You're only allowed to look at my right hand, not my left hand.
that's premium content.
Blurred out.
I'll blur it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Um,
Thumbs up.
what was I gonna ask you?
Thumbs up. Just blur right
Wasn't
above.
it Bill Clinton that used to thumbs up? He was like,
That guy was interesting.
yeah,
You want to know something weird about that?
yeah.
Bill Clinton is the same. I think he's a year younger than Donald Trump.
Really?
And he was the president 30 years ago.
Holy cow. Yeah, I was born into his presidency.
I was born into his presence, is what I thought you were going to say. Which is also like, the whole thing is a weird statement.
But with how that man went.
Yeah, no, I was born just before him. I was born in the
Okay.
WH era.
Oh, WH.
Yeah, but
That's interesting. Wow. Yeah, I feel like I've just gotten, with all this, I've gotten like teleported back into like a 90s feel.
I know. Yeah,
That's
it's
kinda
the
fun.
best.
Wow.
The 90s were great.
It's a good time.
There was so much scandal and people just doing crazy things.
Oh, yeah.
It was actually a very
90s was the
hedonistic
future.
era.
It's true.
Like, very much so.
I mean, that was like that year, that decade was like the future everyone was looking forward to.
Yeah.
And then it happened.
Yeah, because like the 80s was kind of this like peak.
Yeah.
Like all of the fancy stuff got cheaper, came into the mainstream.
Mm.
And then the 90s, everyone just kind of threw it all away.
Yeah, I mean, because everyone thought they were going to die in 2000. So it's kind of,
I mean,
I feel like it's just kind of,
they also thought the rapture was going to happen in 88.
That's true.
So
That's
like,
why they get so excited. Like, oh, it didn't happen.
yeah.
So it's the future. Like, but we're going to die in another 10 years.
No, they got super depressed. That's why grunge happened.
It's true. But I guess what I'm saying with that is because I feel like the 2000s was like an extension of the 90s.
Okay.
And I mean, there were differences for sure.
Yeah.
But like early 2000s, up until like probably 2005, it felt like the 90s still.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
And it was like the cool down from like, oh, well, we didn't plan to live this long. That's the point I was trying to make. You kind of blew that out of the water.
Sorry. That's tough.
It's not true. It's not true.
Well, it is tough because like I have thought about that recently. Like I don't know. You never know what it looks like, feels like to be a day older. So like, technically the statement is true that like I've lived my whole life. Like, wait, so period.
Yeah.
Statement is I've lived my whole life. Like I have completed my whole life.
Yeah.
Right now. You know what I mean? So, and I think there has to be contentment in that. Meaning like tomorrow's not promised, like all of that stuff. Like not to get too heavy into that, but it is one of those things where it's like, I only know what my whole life has been.
Up until
it's even kind of a hard concept for me to like think about, because it's like I think getting to the place where I go, yeah, I'm good today. Like if my whole life, which I've already lived, is today, like I'm good. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure where I was going with that, other than like at the point where you're like, man, I wish that like the rapture would happen. I wish Jesus would come back. I wish, you know, which I think New Testament Christians should be longing for the return of Jesus.
Yeah.
Not for anything else other than the promise of being with him.
Yeah.
Everything else, sure. But like some of it's a little bit selfish. Like you want justice to finally happen. It's like, yeah, but for who? You know what I mean? Like for the guy your neighbor you don't like. You know what I mean?
I think my only wish with, and I say this for even if the rapture doesn't happen in my lifetime, but, you know, my death, if I get raptured, whatever it might be, I hope it comes at the end of the month. Because then I would have just paid rent.
I know.
I'm like, why?
I know. That's the worst.
I would have just paid all my bills and be like, now I'm going to die?
Well, but at least like, you know, at least everything's cleaned out.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Everything's accounted for.
All the bills are paid. Nothing left. Let's go.
Time to go home.
But then at the same time, everybody else is, you know, and probably your landlord is stuck behind. So they probably need a little bit of help.
Yeah, he'll need it. Especially my landlord. For those of you who don't know, he's one of the associate pastors at my church.
Well, I don't know if you have to say that.
I can cut that out. I think it's funnier that way.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, he out of all three of us, he definitely won't need it.
Yeah. No, he'll be going for sure.
Yeah. Way ahead of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, reversing hormone.
Let's go. I was like,
I keep looking at it, so I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, it stares at you.
Well, we were talking about Nimrod.
Oh, that's true.
But that's a little later.
The Garden of Eden.
Okay.
Let me set the stage.
Take it from the top.
Ba-da-ba-ba.
I'm loving it.
You know how much money people owe us right now?
Probably not much.
None. No, none. Like, yeah, here's like $20. Like,
I always think about that.
I'll take it.
I always think about that with commercials. I'm like, I know that McDonald's exists. I don't need to see a McDonald's commercial, but I wasn't thinking about McDonald's. Now I am. So I'm even more unlikely to go there.
Yeah. You know what I always laugh about that, though, is that food looks so good in their ads. And then you see it in real life, and it looks like someone sat on it and then threw it against a wall and then handed it to you.
That probably all happened.
It's very true.
Well, because there's no regulation.
No.
Like, there's just not. Like, everything's coming in frozen.
Yeah,
And every store is owned by a different person.
that's true.
And
Well, then you think about just rude customers.
yeah.
And it's like you realize you're yelling at like a 14-year-old.
Why are you yelling?
I'm not. I don't want to go.
Don't yell at 14-year-olds, Paul.
They deserve it.
No, not me, not me.
No. Don't cancel me, please. Well, I always thought that, like, so we're never getting into this topic, by the way.
Garden of Eden.
When I was at Steak and Shake, some people would get into screaming matches with the drive-through people. And I'm like, this guy doesn't even want to be here right now. And you think he's going to, like, put
It's hot in that
maximum
kitchen.
effort? It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few times where people would throw stuff back and forth. I'm not going to say all the drive-through guys were innocent, because they were not innocent.
Yeah, I don't
instigators.
understand that.
But I don't know. It's kind of it's a fun little system we have going on here. And I guess it works.
Yeah, we have a sign in our house. It's like a Hobby Lobby sign that I love that says, if you can be anything in the world, be kind. Which,
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, I mean, I wish it paid though, but
Yeah, you know what else doesn't make much
because
sense,
I'd be
though?
the most kind person. I would.
If I could get
Man,
paid
I would be
for it.
so kind. I would be way more kind than you.
I don't know if that's plus money or negative money.
I think it's a different category of
That's kind of like Moses. Like, and he was the most humble.
And he wrote it.
Yeah, it's like, man, dog.
Man, dog. That's what we're talking about
Man,
today,
dog.
right?
We're talking about
Chimera?
cryptids and chimeras. But in a way.
Here's the thing. I said this the last time. But what I think when I said Sons of Seth.
Sorry, I said an image.
But I just what, cat dog? Is that what you're thinking of?
I'll tell you in a
The
minute.
Nickelodeon show. No, the thing that I love is like there's a bunch of things that are like kind of hot button words,
Yeah.
but I feel like I'm just learning all of them, and it's like they're ancient concepts. Like,
Yeah.
So like there's just so much stuff that like I'm learning at 35, where I'm like, was the whole world just watered down? Like, what is going on? Like, why is everything so plain?
Yeah.
Because it is not plain in ancient times, or
Right.
even 100 years ago.
Right.
It's almost like we can just sit on the couch and watch TV instead of go out and experience enough of life that would take up what TV occupies.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you live enough life outside doing things that would occupy your brain in a way where you wouldn't even need to see TV, then, but the world's not shaped that way. It's shaped around media and stuff now. So
Yeah, true.
you can't just, it's like, man, I wish, I'm not on social media much, but sometimes I'm like, I wish it just didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, what would it look like if just everyone just turned it off? Like
Yeah.
like if, what's his face book?
Zuckerberg? He said social media.
I should have
so I
said it
went there.
first. Yeah. If Zuckerberg just like hit off, he just turned it off one day
Yeah.
and was just like, sorry
he
guys.
seems like the kind of guy who might do that.
I
though.
wish he would.
Yeah.
The problem is there's so much commerce happening on it
Oh, it's so much.
that it's essentially a marketing platform.
Yeah.
Well, it's a data
Well, you think it's
mining
like-
platform is what it is.
Shutting off, like, if the internet died, millions of people would just lose their job. Or, like, even social media, if that just went away.
Are you saying that the internet is a living entity?
No, I think it's a means to an end. As far as
The rapture?
yeah, as far as the rapture. No, okay. It's an interesting idea.
I do think, as a brief aside that is going to have no explanation,
Yeah.
I do think that where there are princes and principalities over regions
Yeah.
of the earth, I think that also exists in digital spaces. I'll just leave that there.
I'm going to respect that. Yeah, no, I think I agree with that as well. But yeah, so now I'm like, should we just go down this topic instead?
No, Garden of Eden.
Okay, Garden of Eden. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine trees. Imagine water.
Ooh.
Imagine naked people.
Don't do that.
No, don't do that. We're trying to stay pure around here. But no, so we're in the Garden of Eden, and here's the thing that's funny. So, and I want to hear your thoughts on this before we jump into kind of opening it up a little bit more. And this, I'm going to go down a slight tangent to come right back to where I'm at. Perfect. I think it's funny how this happened to me for a long time, and I think it happens to a lot of people. Is that we get bored with the Bible?
Yeah.
And it's like we're not interested in reading it and studying it because we think we got it.
Sure.
But then we see something like, the story of the fall of man.
Okay.
And Sunday school has always taught me. Yeah, and then there's this. Yeah, I still go to Sunday school. It's.
You just play high pitched noises the whole time.
That keeps me out.
Kids are just screaming everywhere.
What are you guys hearing?
Yeah,
it's losing their minds.
Oh, I just lost my headphones.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
Oh, welcome back. And so I was always told, okay, so here we have Eve and Adam and Eve. They're just kind of, wandering through the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, this snake comes up and starts talking to Eve. And we're like, yeah, cool.
I know.
And the explanation was always, well, it was before the fall. And, stuff's weird. Anyway, so this is what happened next.
Right.
And for me, it's like, okay, how is the Bible boring, first of all? Even if that is the gospel truth of what happens here, it's like a talking snake?
Right.
That's insane.
Yeah, and I think our brain will separate things. Like same thing with is it Absalom? Absalom, his donkey. Is his name Absalom?
Balaam.
Why did I say is Absalom's?
That's David's son, isn't it?
David does have a son. No, David. Saul's son. No, you're right, David.
I think it's David.
David's son, Absalom.
He's the one who got hanged by riding his horse.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it unfortunate, or I don't remember who he was.
The justice of God.
Yeah.
That's a whole different topic.
That is different.
Yeah. So, I guess what was I even going to say?
How we separate things.
Yeah. So there's a separation I think that we have where when we read things, I think in this we kind of hit on this a little bit, but when we read a bunch of books just about whatever.
Yeah.
Like we just read a bunch of fictional books. We read a bunch of self-help books or commentaries or whatever it is we're reading. And I mean commentaries on the world. So autobiographies or historical documents or different things like that. Our brain kind of puts that in these different categories. But the main one it puts it in is that it's a non-experience. So it's something we have never experienced.
Yeah, that's true.
And so in some ways there's a cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Where we just kind of go well, I know I didn't experience any of the things that I'm reading. So they either can or can't be true. And that's really up to me to just decide.
Yeah.
So like there's this weird thing where we kind of go, like with the Bible, for instance, we go exactly like what you're saying. We go, all right, there's a bunch of things in here that I want to put on a really cool design and hang it up on my wall. So like that's helpful to me. But the stuff that I don't really understand, like why was a snake talking in the garden?
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to put that on a sign that's in my room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I can just believe that something like that happened, and I can just be okay with not understanding it. And the truth is like you can do that,
Sure.
but I think like what you're saying, like why does the Bible get boring? And I think that it's an act of humility for like that the Holy Spirit, as you're reading the Bible, would reveal things to you that humbles you.
Yeah.
In such a way that goes, oh, wait, I never saw this before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it opens you up to something where you're like, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And you don't walk around as a Christian going like, I know everything that the Bible says. And I know exactly how it happened and why it happened. It's like, I mean, that's incredible. Because there are people that literally speak Hebrew.
Yeah. Their entire life spent on this.
Yeah, they grew up, their first and only language is actively Hebrew.
Yeah.
So they have a far closer relationship to the original Hebrew text, and they're still actively studying it.
Yeah.
Like, what does this mean? You know what I mean? And so, like, that type of thing is like, how in the world are you, like, a 30-year-old American kid in the Midwest? Because let's not knock on Florida anymore.
Just my other hometown.
That knows everything about the Bible.
Right. Like I figured it out.
Yeah, not true.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you can figure out the purpose of it.
Yeah.
Because that's in plain sight, which is beautiful. But then the subtext of it, or what the original reader would have seen, you're not even close to seeing that. And then the Bible gets boring.
Yeah.
Because it's just a bunch of anecdotes.
And I think in one sense is because, especially I think with that in particular, being taught that it's a real snake. So spoiler, I don't believe that.
Okay. All right.
We'll start there.
What do you mean by real snake? Because it is a real snake, but it's not a...
As far as like when we think of like, oh,
it's not a rattlesnake.
Right. Yeah. It's not like, oh, here's just like a king cobra hanging outside.
Yeah.
Talking to Eve.
And it's potentially not categorically like in the species that we would look at based off of the kingdom phylum of like what a snake is. Yeah,
and I think and so I guess partly to say that too, to kind of open that idea up a little more. Well, here, let me say this first. I think that if we believe that, it's just like a black racer out like that I can find in my garden. if I'm saying like that's the thing that deceived Eve.
Yeah.
Then yes, the Bible's boring because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because it's like
that makes no logical sense.
Yeah, it's like Balaam's donkey just can talk. Okay, that's crazy. So maybe the snake could just talk too.
Right.
And but it's like a cartoon I've seen.
Which is funny because it's like, well, why did Balaam's donkey talk?
Yeah.
Which a whole separate thing.
And who is Balaam?
Yeah.
Like, why did God use somebody that's not a prophet for him?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
All those things.
But yeah, so I think that's part of it. So in one sense, it's like, well, let's re-examine this and be like, can this make sense?
Yeah.
Because I'll just say them out loud. I'll pick on them a little bit, like Answers in Genesis. Because I've seen
say that again.
Answers in Genesis.
Answers. I don't know that.
You don't know them? Ken Ham.
Okay.
And his stuff.
I know Ken Ham.
Yeah. That his ministry is Answers in Genesis.
Okay.
I grew up with them. I know a lot of homeschoolers did.
Okay. I was not homeschooled.
That's true. I'm representing that too.
Yeah.
But so from them, what I've heard them say is that, oh, this is a real snake. And it's like, okay, well, what about the talking thing? I've seen some people, I don't know if this was necessarily them. It's like, oh, it might have been like telepathy. But then it's like, okay, maybe that's true. And the argument that I have heard from one of the guys at Answers in Genesis said, well, like parrots can talk. And so maybe a snake had like I'm saying it in a mocky way because I don't agree with it. But
Well,
it's
that's all parrots do is they mock. They don't talk.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, maybe snakes used to have the ability to vocalize that way. They no longer do. It's like,
Which gets into the...
how many times have you seen a snake talk or like ever heard like that makes no sense?
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of pushes into the supported idea, or what some people would look at as like what the conditions of the garden were.
Yeah.
So like the Garden of Eden itself, like what condition was everything? Was everything in perfect harmony? You know, did animals eat other animals? Like all
Right.
of that stuff. The stuff that's not like exactly specified.
Yeah.
So like it does kind of get into that because it's like, well, we don't really know the layout of that world, so I guess they could talk. It's
And
just like a
so-
quick write-off.
Yeah, which I think is a little bit irresponsible,
Sure.
especially when, and actually you brought this up on one of our last episodes, which is like God called it good.
Yeah.
And so the question then is like, what does that mean? And it's like, well,
Yeah.
I actually have an episode about this. I don't remember which one it was. It was one of the couple, it was like 2 years ago I did. And it's like, okay, so what does it mean when God says it's good? Well, the word there, which I don't know off the top of my head, but essentially it means orderly or it serves a purpose.
Right.
And it's like, so what God created, it all served a purpose. It was all useful. It was all orderly.
Yeah, but that's also a clear distinction between what was happening right before he called it good, which was chaos.
Yeah.
So when he called it good, he was saying, all right, the Bible says in the chaos,
Yeah.
he spoke and then order was created
Yes.
and he called it orderly.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's calling things into order.
Yeah.
Right.
And so for what we're talking about, it's like, so why is that important? Well, I think it's important because it means that God established an order.
Right.
He put order to chaos.
Yeah.
And that's significant because God likes order. He created order. I've said this before. God likes his order. He created his order, and he's going to use his order.
Yeah, yeah.
And so why would we imagine that everything was so dramatically different pre-fall than it is post-fall, the
Sure.
world that we live in?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the main thing for that is like, I mean, like a dumb question to ask is, like if I stub my toe, well, yeah, it hurts. But is that wrong? Is that a result of the fall? No. Why? Because we know what the results of the fall were.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because he tells us right afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Like those are the things that happened as a result for mankind's sin. So everything else we're just making up. We're getting it from nowhere.
Yeah, it's speculation.
If we say like, oh, well, they used to be able to talk, because we don't actually know one way or the other. It's like, well, no, I think we kind of do know because snakes don't talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important. I feel like it's a good quick aside to say the main purpose of even talking about any of this stuff
Yeah.
is to just say the Bible's not boring.
True.
We don't know exactly what we're talking about as far as like anything that we say is not necessarily exactly the interpretation of the scripture.
Yeah.
But what we are saying is that it probably means something, and some of the things that we're saying are things that people said a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
this is kind of how they saw it. Plus there are things that like I want to bring up too in a minute that are like clear observations of like, well, they must have known something because you see the fruit of it. You see what's produced from it.
Yeah.
So the garden, do you want to talk about the garden at all?
Let's do it. Let's do it. I think it's important to set the stage for
I do too.
the Nahash, the serpent.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Which I said that word to plant a seed.
words mean something in the Bible. And honestly, to God,
Yeah.
that's what he used.
Yeah.
Words. And he gave us his word. But okay, so I think it is important to talk about that. You know, you talk about like in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And like when you look at all of that, there's discussions of ex nihilo, like from nothing.
Yeah.
And then you can get into the philosophical discussion of if God created from nothing, then who created God? like getting into all of those things where it's like, all right, I mean, you can get into that,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like I wasn't there. Like what he says to Job, like, were you there? He's like, no, that's an interesting one because Ben Elohim is represented in that passage.
Yes.
And again, I feel like I keep telling you this, but it's really fun to like mention phrases and like keywords
So
where
good.
like most listeners are gonna be like, wait, what does that mean?
Yeah. And honestly, some of that's a little intentional.
Yeah, it is.
Part of like, and I've heard this from people, which I absolutely love, is like, I want us all to be excited to read and study the Bible.
Yes.
And if this podcast does nothing but get you excited to read,
Yeah.
then I've done my job.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about this, and their response was like, man, I want to go read my Bible.
Yeah. It's like, good.
And I know I literally just said what you just said, but it was a personal example.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
And I had to say, like, to be honest, everything I just said, I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think that I don't think that that's wrong. I think that we were just talking about this. Like, there are scholars and professors and people that we hold to high esteem because of time that they've spent focusing a very specific and niche thing. And the thing is like, even the thing that they've spent 30 years studying and working on and dialing in, they might be wrong.
True.
And we have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. So that doesn't mean that they don't know a ton about it. What it means is that they can paint a bigger picture. They have a larger framework for what it potentially could have been, not what it actually is now.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what most scholars, like, that's kind of where they stand. That's why, like, it's awesome to hear scholars say just plainly, like, I'm building off the back of other people. I'm referencing other people. And that's all a doctoral dissertation is. Yeah. Is you're carving a slightly new path, and you're building that new path off of other people's work.
Yeah.
So all you're doing is saying, hey, all of these people said these things. What if I actually take that puzzle and I rearrange it like this? Does it actually support this idea? You know what I mean? And so it's like, it doesn't make all these things wrong. It just potentially makes this true. Yeah. And that's all a dissertation is. Right. It's just taking a bunch of information, shuffling it around, and in some ways, and in the bad ways for scholarly work, it could be forcing stuff to say stuff it doesn't. True. Yeah. And that can be where it gets dangerous. But I feel like in the effort of our conversation, it's just simply to say, like, the Bible's not boring. There's way more depth to it. Yeah. And there's way more history in these things. And it shows up all the way through. That there's I would go so far as to say there's a storyline in the Bible that's critical to the Bible that I don't think I ever saw up until 9 months ago. Wow. That I was like, oh, this is from the beginning to the end. Yeah. This shows up all the way through, and I never knew anything about it. It's crazy. But that didn't affect my relationship with Jesus. Yeah. But learning some of that stuff deepened it. Yeah. It gave me a greater appreciation for the Word of God. It made stuff where I go, man, it's getting kind of boring. Like, I'm kind of bored with this. Like, I've heard people, I remember one guy said to me, like, yeah, I listen to the Bible now because I just got bored reading it. It's like crazy. Yeah. And I go, I get it. Like, it's good to, like, kind of break habits. Yeah. In order to, like, have a new perspective.
That's what you need to do to hear something new.
Yes. And I feel like that's what you're doing with this podcast. Yeah. Is like, hear a bunch of these key words, hear a bunch of these things that you've never heard before, and go, wait, is that in the Bible? Yeah. Well, there's only one way to find out. Yeah,
to
like,
crack
go
that
read your
open.
Bible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like this Starry by the Pepsi Cola Company. Use code FLIBBITY and you will get 5 for the price of 5.
Oh, I love it. Well, so I mean, with that said, I think let me preface this because we're talking about the serpent. Okay. Most people will attach that to Satan. Sure. And we can get into that alone, like that by itself too. But I think what's important is
the serpent ever called Satan?
So there's only the verse in Revelation that people like to look at.
Sure.
Which, do you know what the reference is?
I don't.
I could try to find it.
Okay.
But let's not jump there yet.
Okay.
Let's start with, so you're about to outline the garden
Okay.
leading into the serpent.
Okay, and then I'll look that. Or
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Okay, so the garden, there's a bunch of speculations about what and where the garden is. The Bible tells us where it is, but it's funny because it's a treasure map that no one can solve. And tons of people have said like, well, this is what it means. I think some people say that even there are places in the Nile that are potentially hotbeds for where the garden could have been down in Egypt, and like it literally is all over the map in the Middle East of like where the garden could have been. And I think one of the interesting things that I think I've heard more recently, and honestly didn't really think about it, and this is actually a good spot to say like this is where the Bible can be really interesting, where it says where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. And I think when 2 people like Paul and I, if you get with other people and you start discussing the Bible, I think that that's where God will show up in your midst and bear witness to your conversation. It doesn't mean that he'll say you are correct.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it does mean that you're spending your time meditating and conversing and trying to dissect the Word of God, which I think is beneficial. Even if it's just going, have you ever thought about the garden? Where was the garden? Okay, it tells us the Tigris and the Euphrates, right? Mm-hmm. And then like it was the head point of 3 different rivers.
Yeah.
And what's the third river? That's always the one that I never know.
I always forget that one too.
I know, but it's in the Bible.
I actually forget all 3 of the names most of the time.
I think Tigris and Euphrates are the others.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah. If it's not, go read your Bible.
Yeah, let us know. Drop a comment.
Yeah. And then pick it up and write it. But yeah, so one of the things about the garden, like that, and that's what I say, like, that's why I love this idea in these discussions, is because for me, it's like, it's a way of communing with God, is speaking about his word and speculating or conversing about what it could mean and what it could be. And a lot of things, like if you land on this is for sure what it is, that's probably dangerous a lot of times especially when you're saying, well, that's not, if it's not actually written out in the Bible like that, or if there's not reference to an early translation or going back to like studying the original text, if that's not actually what it says, then don't build theology off that.
Yeah.
But it is fun to discuss those things. And as Dr. Michael Heiser says, if it's weird and it's in the Bible, it's probably important.
Yeah.
So like if there's a snake talking, it's probably important. If there's a garden, and I've heard this said before, like we say the Garden of Eden. And I think in my mind, I've always thought it like that's all there was, a Garden of Eden. Well, the literary breakdown of that type of phrase or that type of like title is the Garden of Eden, which means that Eden was the region and it was the garden in Eden.
Right.
So it's like,
because we see when Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how can you get kicked out of it when that's all there is?
Sure. And they're still potentially in Eden.
Right.
They're not but they're not in the garden.
They don't have access to the garden within Eden.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you kind of go, well, what is Eden?
Yeah.
Do you know the etymology of Eden?
I don't.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't either.
Yeah, actually, I don't off the top of my head.
Yeah, because there are things like that like sometimes those words in Hebrew are very generic.
True.
Like they're just like earth.
Yeah.
Like it could have just been like Eden was the word for earth.
Yeah.
That's clearly speculative. I have no idea. It probably would be really easy to just look up really quick. But so some people believe that Eden was physically on earth, that it was literally on the ground, the dust of the earth. Some people believe that it was potentially transdimensional.
Yeah.
Which would mean that and the way they would say it would be that like the gates to Eden were on the earth. the earth as we know it, but then the garden itself was in a spiritual realm.
Yeah.
So that you would walk through the gates into the garden, and the garden itself was on a spiritual, in a spiritual dimension or on a spiritual plane.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense.
Especially when you look at, there's at least only named one guardian after they're kicked out.
Oh yeah, that's jumping way ahead.
It is jumping ahead. Yeah.
But the reason why it makes sense, and it also doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But the reason why it makes sense to me, and I don't necessarily hold to any of these, like Eden was this. Like I don't actually hold to any of those things. I like
find
to
it
just
interesting.
Yeah, I think I just kind of hold it all loosely. It just, what I know is that it existed. I believe that it existed, and the accounts written about it happened. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So, but the thing that I think is interesting about that idea that the gates are on, which a lot of people would say that they were on Mount Hermon or Mount Hermon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which that's a whole other, like that gets into later key things. And I think that's why they say it. There's apocryphal texts, I think, that point to it as well. But the idea would be like, so Mount Hermon would be the high point in Israel. Yeah. Now I can't, it's hard for me to say the other way. Hermon, Mount Hermon, it sounds wrong.
Yes.
You got me. I'm still saying Saint Augustine. I almost went the other way.
You almost did.
I don't know.
That's so funny.
But yeah, so the garden itself. So let's say the garden, the gates to the garden were on Mount Hermon, which was the high point, the highest peak of the highest mountain in Israel, which a lot of people would say like that's the heart of the earth. Like So if that's true, that makes sense. That like that then that would represent like all the way through Scripture. There's such value on the high point, on the high place.
Yeah.
Because the high place in Scripture is where you meet with God.
True.
So it would make sense that like, and that's not even like speculation. That's actually what it was. Every altar, every temple, it's all at the high place.
Yes.
That's why Jesus with the woman at the well says, I tell you, true worshipers now will worship wherever they are. They don't have to be on this mountain or that mountain. And he says that because that's the only place people worship.
Yeah.
Is at the high place, the high places. So the highest place in Israel, Mount Hermon, that's where a lot of people that have this like trans-dimensional belief think that the gates were, so that you went to the high place to meet with God, and then you stepped through the gates and you were in the spiritual space.
Yeah.
And in the spiritual space in the garden itself, you could walk with God. Which I love that because it kind of supports this like blending of heaven and earth.
Right.
But not as together, but actually as two separate planes.
Yeah.
Where you can move from one to the other.
Yeah.
And that actually supports a lot more of what happens in Genesis.
It seems to make more sense in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even the image of Revelation is not that heaven is integrated with earth.
Right.
It's that there's a new heaven and a new earth.
They're still separate.
They are. Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
and I think the reason why they're separate is because there are spiritual beings.
Yeah.
And then there are, in Revelation, there are resurrected bodies. So these two things are two general classes of beings that exist that are created beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what Genesis brings us into, is this world of created beings that we're unfamiliar with. But the reader would have been familiar with.
Yeah.
So we now are unfamiliar with it. And I think that's probably a question that I have a lot, or I have more often, is, am I okay with there being other beings than humans? Just as a general statement. And the fact is like, I actually am okay with it because I believe there's angels.
Yeah.
So if I believe there's, like on a basic level, I think if you're a Christian, you believe that there's angels. Now, what is in your head when you say the word angel is probably dramatically different from person to person. Definitely from modern Christians to ancient Christians.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're going to get into.
Well, so along with this, because this is important for this conversation, is that when it comes to the idea, the belief in extraterrestrials,
Okay.
we'll just jump to that word, which is
Yeah.
which is funny. It's like it goes in the categories thing. That's a separate category that we create.
Sure.
But what's interesting about that is it was actually a very popular belief within the church for a very long time, where most Christians, I think if not all, I can't say all, most, would believe or were interested in the idea of extraterrestrials. But that disappeared with the popularization of Darwinianism, or Darwinian evolution. And the reason for that...
Was that late?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's funny about that is because their belief was that, if we could prove extraterrestrials were real, that would prove evolution, Darwinian evolution.
Right. Okay.
Which is funny. It's like, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But Christians heard that and we got scared and we're like, okay, toss it out the window.
Right.
But the reason why I say that is because the belief in other beings, especially just, things outside of human, on the similar level of a human, as far as intellect and ability, but different.
Yeah.
Like that, for us to reject that idea is actually pretty recent.
Yeah, and that actually speaks to I feel like a phrase that people know a lot, which is like the greatest lie which I actually, for the first time today, I went, that's not true. But the phrase is, the greatest lie the enemy ever told was that he didn't exist. And literally today, I was like, that's not true. That's not his greatest lie.
Go on.
Because here's the thing. The greatest lie is that he's God. Like the greatest lie the enemy ever told is that Yahweh is not the true God.
Yeah.
That's his greatest sin.
Yeah.
Like that is his greatest lie.
That's interesting.
So it's the root of idolatry. So, but the thing is like the reason why that phrase is so popularized is because it's naturalist.
Yeah.
So it's not his greatest lie, it's his current lie. But that lie is, like we were talking about before, we're postmodern.
Yeah.
So we're not in a natural world anymore.
That's all starting to become undone.
Yeah, people are starting to become more and more spiritual. And
absolutely.
I'm hearing high school kids talk about the Book of Enoch.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm like, what? I just found out about this.
This is new for me. Yeah.
I know. But that's where we are is everything is more and more spiritual. I mean, when you take Luigi boards and you put them on the shelf at Walmart, it's like, yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
And I know they're called Ouija boards, but
that was funnier the other way though.
Yeah. It's me.
Yeah, I'm a Luigi.
I'm a Luigi. I just love
That's so good.
that New York Italian. Because he adds so many extra letters.
Letterage.
I'm a Luigi. It's a whole sentence, and it's just his name.
It's like, I'm Luigi.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a Luigi.
It's like he is a thing instead of this is my name. Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess all that to say is like the looking at. So I mean, let's look at that word. For
Which
serpent.
One? Okay.
So we'll kind of jump. We'll jumping back into that.
Okay.
So
I was trying to look up Job, the Ben Elohim moment, because I feel like that goes back into the like, where were you when I made the sun and the moon and the stars?
Yeah.
I actually think that I'd have to look back at it. I think that Ben Elohim is referenced there.
Oh, really?
So like the creation of the sons of God is like kind of referenced in that
way.
space. Yeah. Which is...
That'd be an interesting find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the places that proper noun shows up.
Which is... We'll get into that in a second, because that's an interesting little point.
Yeah, which makes sense here at the beginning of Genesis, though, too.
Especially with the deception that's told.
Right.
It makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
It makes more sense of it, too.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, so Nahash, or Nakash, some people might say.
Yeah.
I've heard both. So
depending
that's
on what language you speak.
That's true. On an English speaker trying to speak ancient Hebrew.
Yeah, true.
So that word there, actually, it can have a couple meanings.
Okay.
So the primary one and the one that we see translated here is serpent.
Right.
But what's interesting is like, okay, so what else does it mean? What other connotations we pull from this? And actually, one of them is, I believe it's something about deceiving, the one who deceives, or something like that.
Okay.
Is a
Yeah,
reference
the
to that.
deceiver.
And then the third one is the brazen one, or the flaming one.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, why is that interesting? Well, I find it interesting. It's like, well, where else do we see something like that described?
Yeah, I'm glad you're going here. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So take us there.
No, you take us there. I'll follow you.
So it's like, okay, well, we actually see this in descriptions of, for lack of a better word, angels.
Right.
And it was is it the cherubim?
Cherubim.
Yeah. And it's like they're actually described as the flaming ones, the fiery ones.
Yes.
And it's like, well, that's fascinating. And also because this was actually a big thing in Mesopotamian.
I just thought about this now, but the pillar of fire by night,
Yeah.
could that have just been cherubim?
It could have just been a cherubim.
That would
And
actually make a lot of sense in the Guardian
I guess
context.
I never thought about that.
I hadn't either.
Well, especially because when you pull into Ezekiel and I'll get there in a second.
The flaming wheels.
I wasn't even going there at that.
Okay. See, the Bible is interesting.
We're both learning so much. And so it's like that's how they're described, but they're also described to have a serpentine-like appearance, to look kind of snake-like.
But that's what a flame looks like.
Yeah,
If you look at a flame, it moves like a serpent.
that's true.
That's the
Yeah,
there's
that's true.
parallel there.
Yeah,
That because the reason why we're talking about this, you might be like, you're that's wild speculation. Except that ancient Hebrew was extremely poetic.
yes,
And I don't mean that it was poetry, therefore it's not historical. What I mean by that is, yes, there are moments where there's poetry happening in order to describe something, but it's poetic in its reference. So there's play on words all over the place. If you're reading in actual Hebrew, it plays on itself. It inverts words, and it's
true.
So you'll see the almost like the light and the dark side of things. Yeah. Not in a yin yang sense, but in the sense that like you can tell that this is supposed to interact with this.
yeah,
And like you're supposed to think of this over here when you read this.
yes,
Like it's drawing you back the same way that like good comedy has callbacks.
yeah,
It's that type. It's keeping it's a thread that ties all the way through.
yeah. It doesn't.
And in English,
they're
we
telling a
miss
good
that.
story.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's made up. It just means that they're using a lot of symbolism and literary devices to tell their story well.
Yeah. There's a true thread through it.
Yeah.
That's why like when you like I used to always think, man, the Psalms don't sing well.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, of course, because you're reading it in English.
Yeah.
Like you're not reading it in the like. Yeah, like go translate a Spanish song right now. It will not sing well in English if you translate it directly. And if you translate it directly, there's at least like at minimum there's 10 options for every word.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of what you're dealing with, is the fact that like there are these literary devices, like you said, that's a perfect way to put it, that like in Hebrew, especially in these big texts like this, in the front of like the beginning of the Bible, you have this thing is playing with this thing that's playing with this thing, and it's all interacting. And it's designed that way. It's creating an image with words. Yeah. Which is it's beautiful. But
it is beautiful. And I think that's where it's like there's so much, because there's what the storyteller is doing is trying to get you to think a certain way about something too. Yeah. And how he's telling this. So like, and there are times when the Bible is legitimately saying what it's saying. Yeah. I think we see that plenty of times. Like, what if it means exactly what it says? But then there are other times, and I think especially in the Old Testament, because these have been passed down for so long. Right. The stories have been told so long. They're going to be told so well
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, well, we can shorten a couple things so like you get this, but I can
Right.
say it better this way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can carry more meaning.
Sure. Yeah, because it's the same reason why you don't like. Yeah, like there's so many exterior there's so much exterior context to an idea that you don't have to describe everything when you write it down.
Yeah.
Like you can't. You're kind of in some ways like good writing is descriptive in order to tell the overarching story, not the specific page you're reading. So like, and that's one of those places where I think that's why a lot of people look at the Bible and go, well, no, it's just super simple, because a book just has one idea.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I mean, you could say that about the Bible, that the Bible is just strictly who is Jesus.
Yeah.
Like you could do that.
Yeah.
That is true. But there's also other storylines going on that are defining or foiling who Jesus is.
Yeah.
So we're seeing who Jesus is from page 1 to page whatever.
The end.
Yeah. From Alpha to Omega.
Yeah.
So like you're seeing this play out in a way that's like, okay, who is Jesus? Well, let me tell you who Jesus is. In the beginning, the cosmos were created.
Yeah.
And Jesus took them with the divine counsel and created order out of chaos.
Yeah.
And he called it orderly.
Yes.
He called it good.
Yeah.
But the divine counsel wasn't all good.
No.
They created disorder in the midst of order. But the interesting thing is that right in the beginning, it doesn't ignore the fact that chaos exists.
Yeah.
It starts there.
Yeah.
So
we even see, actually Heiser had a video about this. It's easy to bring up Heiser a lot in this, him and Tim Mackey both, because they're, at least to me, they're the ones who spent the most time.
So they actually were colleagues. We talked about that before.
Oh, they were? Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Okay,
I think Tim Mackey's a little bit older than I thought he was.
Okay.
No
He's
knock
got
on Tim.
Young face.
Yeah. Great looking guy, Tim.
Yeah. Keep it up, bud.
Yeah. And Heiser passed like early.
Yeah.
I mean, not super early, but
because he could have in his 60s.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it was pretty.
But they were colleagues in what would you call it? Postgraduate work.
Okay.
That's kind of how they were.
What it was.
Yeah. But yeah.
So one of the things that he talks about is in Genesis 1:1.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's and his video is great on it. I'm not going to do but justice to try to recreate it.
Yeah.
But
essentially, go watch it.
his ending that he brings up there is an equally valid translation. So the one we have is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And he basically says there's actually an equally valid translation, but that's like by tradition, we always just go with that one. But an equally valid one is when God began creating the heavens and the earth.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, well, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. It's like, well, actually it does.
Yeah, it is a big deal.
Think about like what just happened there.
Yeah.
This says, in the beginning, God, when God began creating. Let me not say he just appeared, but when God began creating. It's like, that means that there was stuff. There was already stuff going on.
Yeah. Which it's important to also say the Bible is not the oldest book.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the oldest tradition either.
Right.
So like when you look at that, you go, all right, well, the Bible is a complete idea. That's true, but it's not a complete timeline of history.
Right.
Because if you take that reading of Genesis 1:1, then you're walking into a story.
Yeah.
You're not hearing the beginning.
Right.
So you're hearing the beginning of what you know of and what you're experiencing, but you're not hearing the beginning of all things.
And that's what we can tend to do when we hear the one that we're familiar with. It's about us now.
Right.
When it's like, well, actually, no. And that goes into, again, going back to the serpent. It's like, who was this person? Who was this thing?
We've barely gotten to the serpent.
But yeah, it's true.
We've covered a lot though. Yeah.
But I think the main thing with this is, and what we're kind of like teasing at, We just haven't gone into a lot of depth about it, which is, I love how that's like a common theme for us.
I know it's.
We set out to talk about one thing, but there's so much around it.
There is. I mean, yeah.
And
You have to build framework.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
But it's like essentially the idea that we're teasing here is that it wasn't a real snake, as far as like the one I can find outside.
Right.
But it's like this is potentially a divine being. This is potentially a cherubim.
Yes.
And actually, even so, I brought up Ezekiel just a minute ago.
Yeah. So what is a cherubim?
So they're throne guardians.
Okay. That's how Ezekiel describes them.
I believe so.
Okay.
Is it Isaiah or Ezekiel that describes them?
Ezekiel.
Ezekiel. Okay. Because one of the big things with that, so there's a passage where Ezekiel is talking to the prince of Tyre, and then we see following that he talks to the king of Tyre.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting, especially because of how he describes them. A lot of people say that they're just not a lot. I don't know how many people say it. I've seen people
more than one.
That more than one. That it's like, oh, they're two humans, but maybe they hold like slightly different titles. But when you look at how Ezekiel describes them and what he's criticizing them of, one of them I would say clearly a human, but the other one he says you were a guardian cherub.
Oh,
and I believe it's the king of Tyre that he calls that.
It would make more sense that it's the prince, right? I know in the hierarchy that doesn't make sense, but if there's princes and principalities,
that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't remember which one off the top of my head, so I could have those flipped.
Yeah.
But essentially, what he's saying is like you're the guy who's also in charge of like this area.
Yeah.
And you're doing a bad job.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be guarding this. You were in an elevated position.
Yeah.
You're a cherub, but you're doing wickedness. And that tie-in, especially the language that's used for the serpent in the garden.
The reason why I know it's Ezekiel is because it's a dream.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Isaiah doesn't dream that. Ezekiel dreams it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's in a dream that he sees that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Sorry, premium content.
No.
I showed my feet.
Yeah, and that description is really interesting. So let's, because you could keep going on that for a long time too, but let's go. So serpent in the garden, cherubim. Are we saying that the serpent was a cherubim? Well, the serpent, the word used for serpent is not cherubim.
Correct.
But the way it's described is cherubim-like.
Yeah.
But
sorry, go for it.
Well, here's the thing that's weird, like, and maybe this is a trickle down like question that helps answer this. And also I think a little bit of like why you responded the way you did about Ezekiel and Isaiah. But the Ark of the Covenant, the top of the Ark of the Covenant has cherubim on it.
Yeah.
But cherubim, you don't, like, when the Ark of the Covenant was, when God said, make it like this, he didn't describe cherubim. He just said, put cherubim on the top.
Yeah.
That was the first time that you see that word.
Yeah.
So, like, Ezekiel happens way after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're seeing all this stuff, and there's these terms that are being thrown out of spiritual beings, and you're like, how in the world did they know what that was?
Yeah.
Like there's only two options. So in that instance, either God says, hey, put two cherubim on the top, and then goes, hey, don't write this part down, but side note, here's what a cherubim looks like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because why doesn't he describe the cherubim there?
Describes everything else.
I know.
Yeah.
So that has to mean that he knows what it looks like.
Yeah.
But if Moses is meeting with God in the high place, he might be seeing cherubim.
He would be.
If he
was in the throne room of God.
But we don't know that.
We don't know that. I guess that's the if. It's like if he was there, then he would see that as well.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I mean, if God wanted him to see that,
Fair.
I'm sure that God could have like blurred out everybody else.
Censor it.
Yeah. He's like, this is premium content. This is for later generations.
I'm saving this for John.
Ezekiel will find out later. But
so can we add another layer on top of this?
Yeah. Because I think that pushes down into like what cherubim are.
Yeah, and so I guess adding a layer, and this is the verse in Revelation.
We still haven't quite connected why we're saying the serpent is potentially a cherubim.
Oh, that's true. Let's connect that.
You have to do that.
Why do I have to do all the work? So, on one hand, for me, and this is how I thought about it, which helped me.
Okay.
Is like, okay, so we see the language here that could be describing that it's describing more than just a serpent.
Sorry.
Yeah.
When he says put a cherubim on the top, that's not the first time we see cherubim. But it's the first time that there's a witness to cherubim, because there's cherubim that guard the garden.
Right.
So you see it there. But that also lends to, like, meaning we don't have an account before Moses is told to put cherubim on the top.
Oh, what they look
of
like.
people seeing them.
Oh, I see.
Except for the guards at the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
That's the only time, which would mean that they would have had to have been either witnessed, an oral tradition told from that point on.
Yeah.
Or they were beings that came in and out.
True.
Or visited.
Yeah.
Visited.
Which is also possible.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of levels into that we can go into.
Sure.
But let's making this connection first.
Yeah,
It's a way to think about it.
The serpent and cherubim.
Yes. One of the biggest things for me was just the language. It's like those connections that exist like that seem so strong. But on top of that, it's like, okay, we look at what the purpose of a cherub is. It's like, well, they're guardians.
Okay.
We see them especially in the throne room, but then we see them in other places as well. What would be weirder?
I like this. Okay.
It's like what's weirder or more ridiculous to believe? And I'll say it that way intentionally for the Answers in Genesis people. I'm trying to cause some
stir it up.
I'm trying to stir it up a little bit, boost these numbers.
Stir each other up in your most holy faith.
In the way of the Lord.
Yes. It's good. Dialogue.
One that a snake is talking, which never happens.
Sure.
In real life, at least in my experience of life, and anyone else I've ever talked to. Or that they were interacting with a spirit being. What's more unlikely, or what's more believable? Well, we know that they walked with God.
Sure. Why
is it weird for them to interact with a spirit being?
Here's the other thing. The do not be afraid that we see all over the scriptures. It's not happening there.
Right.
So
she's not frightened by it.
She's so not frightened by it that it's like a friend.
Yeah.
In this weird way.
Yeah.
So like we are given a description that this serpent has evil intent. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't interact with it that way.
Yeah.
She interacts with it like it's a normal being that she sees.
Yeah.
Or is a species she's aware of and has interacted with.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Yeah. But then also, like there's also a like misinterpretation of the fact that when God curses, and this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but when God curses the serpent and man and woman, all individually, he basically says like you'll be on your belly, and you'll crawl in the dust. He doesn't say crawl, but
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, but you'll go on and
on
so
your belly you will crawl.
Yeah, something like
And then
that.
something about eating dirt.
Yeah. So like that's
Which is funny alone because man's created from dirt. So it's just kind
well,
of funny.
so but a spiritual being has potential movement from heaven to earth.
Yeah.
But if he's told he has to get on his belly on the dust, then he can't have access anymore to the heavenly places.
Yeah, true.
So his punishment is not that he had legs
Yeah.
and now all snakes slither on the ground. It's that he had access to both heaven and earth and no longer has access to heaven.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his punishment is that he's stuck in the dust.
Yeah.
Not literally
Yeah,
belly on the dust, but he's being humbled to the place of being among the dust.
You know, it's interesting when you say it that way too, because we look at the place of man in the place of these divine beings.
Right.
And on one, it's like, well, they're the sky guardians. We can say it that way.
Sure.
Or the rulers of the sky.
Yeah.
And we're the rulers of the earth. That was the
Yes.
job that God gave us. But there was a difference, and the difference between us and them is that God said, I'm going to make them in my image.
Right.
And so here's this being who
Or
wanted
in our
to be
image.
true. Which actually, that kind of then adds another level to it.
It does. An important level.
Yeah, but it does seem like there is an elevation of humans that's important to look at. And we actually see that kind of progress.
Elevation or evolution?
Elevation.
Okay. Okay.
And in some ways an evolution, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. That's a different discussion. Though.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Not long term. Yeah.
But it's that thing where it's like, okay, so here are these beings that were created before us.
Sure.
And it's like we're supposed to be peers. In a sense, it's like, well, no. But then to be cursed then to be on the ground, to be amongst these people you thought you were above.
Yeah. If you're a guardian of the air
Yeah.
and you can no longer be in the air.
You've been dethroned.
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I think, a critical piece.
Yeah.
So I think that that's why a lot of people also speculate that that is the Satan.
Yeah. So there's a big one, and there's a lot to say about it.
Sure.
But people do make this connection. And so this is Revelation 20, verse 2. We'll just start there because that's important for what we're saying.
Yep.
And it says, and he sees the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. So in the context, it's talking about the 1,000 years.
Right.
Is the head. But it's like, okay, so here's what's interesting. And there's that extra level I was talking about.
Yeah.
Which is the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan.
Yeah. So it's mixing all of these potential categories together into one.
Yeah.
And and the New Testament does this in a way that the Old Testament does not do it.
Yeah.
Which is get specific with spiritual beings.
Right.
So like, yeah, because the Satan of trying to use your pronunciations.
Satan. Yeah.
The Satan. Hey, the Satan. Is
I think I can get canceled for that one. I think the Italian American one.
I think I just got scared.
You're Italian.
Hi, Luigi.
I'm Luigi.
I'm Luigi. Yeah, I think that, like, okay, so when you look at all that, so you named a new category though, which is dragon.
Which is that's the fun layer.
Yeah, but when you look at that, like, okay, so it says that serpent. Does it say that ancient serpent?
Let me verify.
Because that's also another interesting thing where it's
that
like
ancient serpent.
Yeah, so that ancient serpent is referring to a past thing.
Yeah.
So the serpent or the ancient serpent is no longer a serpent.
Yeah.
It's the dragon.
Yeah.
But he was that ancient serpent.
Yeah.
So the current dragon in this image was the ancient serpent.
Yeah.
And the dragon, what was the third descriptor?
Who is the devil and Satan?
The devil and Satan? Does it say it like that?
Yeah.
Who is the devil and is that ESV?
This is ESV, correct? Sorry, Trey.
Who is the devil and Satan and bound him for 1,000 years? Pit, shut it, and sealed it.
Like, there's a lot going on in there.
See the nations longer until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, be released for a little while. Yeah. So
Yeah.
So it basically goes like, hey, Hebrew reader, hey, Aramaic reader, hey, Greek reader. Yeah. All of who you thought was the evil entity over all areas at all times, that's who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's saying that ancient serpent, the dragon, the Satan, the devil.
Yeah.
In all the different areas and different regions and different, like that head one, the one at the top of this lower level, that guy's who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's important because, like you said, at the end, it's referencing the beginning.
Yes.
So, cherubim, dragon.
Yeah.
Right? So, a dragon, and here, we've talked about this a little bit, but one of the things that I think is absolutely true is that humans are not that creative. And what I mean by that is, I have yet to, and I've only experienced the life I've experienced, but everything is replicated.
Yeah.
Like when Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun, like we didn't just make up cherubim.
Right.
We didn't just make up a snake.
Yeah.
We didn't just make up a rainbow or like, and you might say, well, like, yeah, it's found in nature, so it's replicated. Okay. That proves my point.
Yeah.
That like we didn't create any of that stuff. We're just replicating what exists in creation.
Yeah.
And there's a layer of creation that ancient generations experienced more of.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a more tangible way.
Yeah.
And I think that we see that breakdown happen from Old to New Covenant. I think that the ancient world, the Old Testament world, experienced more spiritual things invading their natural space.
Because they were physically invading their physical bodies, their physical places.
Right.
Yeah, which we see David eradicate that, at least as far as the Nephilim go.
Yeah. You know, Tim Mackey said something that I had never heard before in the idea of first, second, third incursions or multiple incursions idea of Genesis 6. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's Genesis 6. That probably doesn't help you, but go read it.
Go read it. Go read your Bible. We haven't even left the first book.
I know.
Not even that many chapters in.
Yeah. Our pastor said one time, I've been in Genesis for years.
Yeah.
And he said that way before I knew what he was talking about. And I was like, well, I get it now.
And I have trouble leaving Genesis 1:1.
Yeah. Well, I like that reread of it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But where was I going?
The breakdown, and then Tim Mackey, Nephilim, David.
Yes. So Tim Mackey actually says with multiple incursions.
Yes.
He says, he doesn't say it definitively. Which is smart because he's very specific in the things that he says because of what he feels his calling and his role is.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for that. I love Tim Mackey. What the Bible Project does is amazing.
Yeah.
And an incredible resource.
Yeah.
But one of the things that
you guys owe money now too, by the way.
Or just come on the podcast, right?
Even better. That's the compromise I'll take.
I think that one of the things that he kind of goes, or this, is in his really quirky way, is he says, maybe every generation has these beings. Meaning this moment of spiritual invasion of humanity and this abomination is happening in every generation. Which is pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
And like not necessarily refutable.
Yeah.
and kind of would make sense in the question that I have of like, if there's 8 billion people on Earth, then like there's either a ton of people who are having zero interactions with demonic entities, or there's a lot of demonic entities that have stayed around from that first moment.
Yeah.
Or there's generations of them that are being welcomed in through ritual.
Right.
And
which I think we do see a lot of that.
Or they're being created through ritual. So like that's the ongoing the potential ongoing nature of spiritual beings acting badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that is a potential, especially.
And you think it's like, why would they only have one big push?
Yeah, well,
it's like, that didn't work.
Yeah, but we do see the instant punishment or the judgment of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you see that, but he says that in reference to the passage in Genesis 6 where it says, and they were in the region then and after.
Yeah, before and after the flood.
Right. So like that's kind of his point is like the way it says or the way it reads feels like it could have a potential that this is in every generation. There is this opportunity for the spiritual and for the profane to happen. And that is true.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily what is happening.
Right.
In that moment.
Right.
But it doesn't like I'm not against that view.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't think it really matters, but
no,
it does make
sense.
Level
to it.
It does.
Like, how do you make sense of this?
It also makes sense to the ongoing nature of it.
Yeah.
Where
true.
It seems like it just never let up.
Yeah.
And okay, so the garden.
Yeah. Are we still there? Oh no! So I was gonna say,
cherubim.
Here's an interesting level because we added this level of dragon on top of that.
Yeah. We also never described a cherubim.
That's true.
So as you talk about the dragon,
maybe
we can describe the cherubim.
Cool, because I want to throw like a weird history side of it too. And this is I think this is the weird thing where this could have no connection whatsoever.
Is a cherubim an angel?
No.
Okay. That actually is really important.
That is.
So that is true. That a cherubim is not an angel.
Yeah.
A cherubim is a guardian. An angel is a messenger.
Yes.
I think there are some translations
too, where it's like an angel isn't specific to being a divine being. I think that's the other important thing.
Oh, that's a whole different rabbit trail.
It is. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll leave that one alone. We'll leave that alone.
Yeah, because that potentially involves us.
Yeah.
And the future state of us.
True.
It could in the conversation. That's a different rabbit trail.
It kind of does bring up early revelation too, but we won't. Right. We'll leave that alone for now because that is actually way bigger.
Yeah, angelology.
Yes,
that is a hard word to say.
It's a hard thing to study too.
Yeah,
but no. So what I will say real quick too. Well, actually, no. I'll let you finish. Sorry, because you were right in the beginning of that.
Of what? No, I think I wrapped it up.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Oh no, I was saying you were about to unwrap dragon.
Oh yes.
Unwrap the dragon.
What a cherub.
Unleash the dragon.
Unleash.
Mountain Dew.
I keep doing that.
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew.
You got a lot to blur out on this episode.
Doom. Yeah, we do. Your hand. You have got to keep that thing.
Oh yeah,
sheathed.
sorry. You can only see my right hand.
That's right. You got to sheathe that thing. So, are you familiar with Herodotus?
No, thank you.
So he is considered the father of all history.
Wow, that's
and
a big
also
title.
The father of lies.
Makes sense.
Which is funny. So
all history is lies. Is that the play?
Well, they just didn't like what he had to say.
Yeah.
But here's what's funny, and this is what's interesting about the way he did his histories. Is the name of his book, and it's a fat book. I had to read that for school. That was painful, but it was kind of interesting. So the way he went through writing his history is he didn't write from his own perspective. There's
Okay.
times where he inserts like his ideas of what he thinks something means or what's going on.
Okay.
But what he did was he would go into a town or a city, whatever, and talk to the people and tell them to give them, like, what is this? He'd go into the temple and be like, there's something, like, this is weird. What is this?
Oh, that's
Where'd
cool.
that come from?
So it's an oral tradition.
Yeah. And he's basically writing down what people told him.
That's cool.
So it's interesting. And this could have zero connection.
Is there a date on it?
Yeah, I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's pretty old.
Like 1,000 or like 500? I guess that's not that far.
It's
apart.
all BC stuff.
Okay, so 2,000.
It's very old.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is before Josephus and all these guys.
Okay.
And so one of the things that he reports a lot on, and this is kind of where he gets the title, the Father of Lies, is because one of the things he talks about are flying serpents.
Okay.
And he even says, he's like, I've never seen one, but people keep talking about them.
Okay.
And talking about seeing the bones of them and all this and that.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I think the only people never saw a live one. They only saw the bones of them.
Okay, so like dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, well, that's interesting because it's like, couldn't you call that like a dragon?
Oh,
Because
right. I honestly
especially-
didn't even think that's where you were going.
And it's like this could have a connection. It could not. This is just something
Sure.
that I've thought, which is an interesting correlation. Well, especially when we look at the idea, because I think we say dragon and dinosaur because of our modern vernacular.
Right.
We look at dragon as this ancient medieval mythological thing, and a dinosaur is a realistic, other ancient being. But the word dragon is actually much older than dinosaur. I believe dinosaur wasn't invented until like the 19th century. And if you look in dictionaries, like I think it's like 1842. You'll never find the word dinosaur because it wasn't invented.
Yeah, I want to say 1850.
It might have been 1850.
Yeah, it's super
it's
recent.
it's in that realm of very recent history.
Yeah. And that's not finding bones, that's creating the terminology.
Correct.
But finding bones and starting to build a history of it
Yeah.
isn't that much older either.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've even had redos on that. There's been plenty of times where that's actually not even a real dinosaur.
But I also
we got that
can't-
mixed up.
I can't imagine like 400 or 500 years ago, somebody who's like, because think about 400 or 500 years ago, all over the earth, there was no middle class.
Yeah.
So you have very, very poor people and very rich people.
Yeah.
There probably wasn't, and there was way less rich people.
Hmm.
Like maybe there was like one rich guy that used to like to go out into the desert and use a little brush on the, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it makes sense that didn't happen for so long.
And it is funny to think about that because even with like the Romans, like the Roman citizens, like they would go on vacation,
Yeah.
which is weird to think about.
Yeah, that's true.
Because we think of it as like a modern thing,
Yeah.
but it's like people have always been people.
Yeah.
I think that's the point of a lot of this. It's like people have always been people.
Yeah.
We've always been the way we are
Yeah,
in
true.
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so when Herodotus and all these people are talking about these flying serpents, it's like, well, where's the only place we see that? And even when we look at the idea of like a serpent, look at how the ancients depict dragons. They're very serpent-like.
Yeah, they're less like a T-Rex with wings.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Like
it's
that's how Shrek does it.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, so it's like, okay, so what's the point of all this? And
Right.
the point is like, well, Revelation refers to the serpent as also the dragon.
Right.
But then we see in Genesis, the dragon, the serpent, is similar language used to describe cherubim.
Sure. And also like if you look at that Revelation passage, you're looking at generational language.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, because devil would be the newest one,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So you're looking at, hey, from the beginning, all of these generations of this person
Yeah.
or this entity,
Yeah.
this being. So it ties it all together. So like to this generation, they called it a serpent. To this generation, it was the dragon.
Yeah.
To this generation, it was the Satan.
Yeah.
You know, now you probably call him the devil. So it's like, it's all the same person.
Yeah. We're all talking about the
Or
same
being.
being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the devil looks like a serpent, a snake, or is the most descriptive in our vernacular the dragon?
And that's where I kind of lean toward it personally.
Yeah, that it's more of a serpentine winged
Thing.
beast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even a serpentine winged beast would imitate fire, but not necessarily
Right.
breathe fire.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. Because even the cherubim at the entrance, they have swords,
Yeah.
and the swords are in constant motion,
Yeah.
which look like fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think that's the hard thing especially with ending a conversation like this where it's at.
Right.
It's because essentially it's what we said in the beginning. Like, we don't actually know the answers.
No.
And in some ways it's like, maybe you can, maybe you can't. But why is it important to have? One, because it's just fun.
Yeah.
But it's like, it also, if we're going to take, I'll say it in a positive way, Saint Augustine here.
Yeah.
I was kind of picking on him in the last few. The way he says it is, all truth is God's truth. The way I say it is truth is truth is truth. Both essentially going toward the same idea.
Sure.
Which is that his slightly different in that, like, truth will lead to God.
Yeah.
And the way I kind of say it is, like, if it's true, it'll always be true.
If it's true, it'll prove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll lead you toward who Christ is. It'll lead you toward God. And I think it's like, okay, why do we even have these weird conversations like this? Because they lead us toward God, or they should lead us there.
Yeah, because even the
I'll
Bible
take it back.
says
They will.
yeah. Because even the Bible says heaven and earth will pass away,
Yeah.
but my words remain.
Yeah.
So
And then, I mean, I think it's a great one even to bring John in. How does John start his gospel? It says, in the beginning was the Word.
Yeah.
And the Word was God.
Right.
And the Word was with God.
Yeah, he basically says God is Jesus.
Yeah.
And Jesus is God.
Yeah.
And he essentially introduces the second part of the Trinity.
Yeah.
While referencing in the beginning where another part of the Trinity exists, the Ruach, right? So in the Old Testament, they had the breath of God.
Yeah.
And then God. But they were monotheistic.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't believe that there was a Trinity.
Right.
So like Jewish people don't believe there's a Trinity.
Yeah.
Because they're monotheists. But Christians are also monotheists.
Mm-hmm.
We just have this end around.
Which is, it is funny, even with that, and like a small aside, is like, even though they didn't necessarily think that,
Yeah.
you still see the evidence of all three.
Sure.
Even in the Old Testament.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, and it's interesting because like the cool thing about humanity is that it is we are made from earth, made from dust.
Yeah.
But what inhabits us is the Ruach of God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas the spiritual beings are not made from dust.
Right. We don't know what they're made from.
Yeah. They're potentially made from the Ruach of God.
Yeah.
Just in a more physical form.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know. We don't know that. But I think we do know that that things like cherubim are not angels. Angels are not cherubim. The devil,
Yeah.
the serpent,
Devin's the devil.
the Satan.
That's the name of the episode.
Yeah. Devin's devil. Devin's deviled eggs. All of these things. So the ancient serpent, the dragon, the Satan, the devil, all the same thing.
Yeah.
So does that mean it changed shape? Probably not. That's not very realistic. But I think one of the things to think about is iconography. And I think one of the things that we have to be careful of is that we don't brand ourselves with, like, I don't know that getting a dragon tattoo is the best idea. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, meaning, like, these ancient things.
Representation matters.
It does.
Yeah.
That fell out of place.
It did. Sorry, this story is really hitting.
Yeah, it's wearing off.
It's wearing off.
We peaked a little while ago.
Yeah. You get what I'm trying to say.
Representation. No taxation without representation. Sink the ships. Yeah, so there is that idea that, like, I think we do need to be careful of, like, what we represent, what we say is okay. Like, I think because the Satan or the devil starts to become something that is ethereal.
Yeah.
Versus it being the dragon or the ancient serpent. Like, the ancient serpent was not ethereal to Eve in the garden. It handed an apple, right? Wait.
No, Eve took it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also probably a misconception that cartoons did to us.
True.
But there is that piece of it where it's like, where I think we need to be careful of, like, some things are harmless. It's like maybe, but, like, maybe stay away from any descriptor of the ancient serpent.
Yeah.
Just kind of stay away from it.
Yeah.
Just, like, at all costs, just kind of stay away from it.
Yeah.
But so cherubim. So we didn't describe what cherubim are. We probably should wrap up.
Let's do that. Let's wrap up with describing them.
So Ezekiel describes cherubim, right? That's actually our first description of cherubim. I believe. I could be wrong, but read your Bible.
Let's rock with it. Tell us.
But cherubim are 4-eye winged beings, right?
It's funny. I can't actually remember off the top of my head.
Okay. Because I think the representation that we have of cherubim a lot of times are like dudes with wings.
Oh, yeah.
You see, like, this, like, chest out, like, on the Titanic.
He's like a Mr. Olympian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not what a cherubim is. Because a cherubim has 4 eyes. I don't know if it has 4 wings, but it definitely has wings. But cherubim are guardians, and so, like, they were the ones.
Gotcha.
They were the ones set at the garden so that no one could enter the garden again once there was rebellion. But yeah, you have it?
Yeah. Hold on, I just lost it.
So then the question is,
embarrassing.
was the ancient serpent a cherubim? Well, there's good reason to believe that.
Starting in verse 21.
Okay, here we go. So Ezekiel
10:21.
10:21.
Or wherever you choose to start.
These were the living creatures that I saw underneath the God of Israel by the Chebar Canal. And I knew that they were cherubim. So even right there.
It's like I already know what they look like.
Yeah, I already knew what they were. Do you know why? Because Ezekiel had probably seen the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or there were depictions of the Ark of the Covenant. Didn't Solomon have massive cherubim in the temple? I believe that he did. I think he had golden cherubim, like, statues in the temple, which would be terrifying.
Crazy. Yeah.
But awe-inspiring.
The ancients did love giant statues.
That's true. The ancients also loved giants.
That's true.
There's a big problem there.
Some of the ancients were giant.
Some of them just married them.
Actually, I'm sorry.
So, okay. So
hit a tangent again.
And I knew that they were cherubim. Each had 4 faces. Okay. So way crazier than I
A couple more
said.
eyes than 4.
Yeah. So they had 4 faces.
Yeah.
which I believe that that's just referring to like the imagery of that is referring to all seeing, like north, south, east, and west.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what I've heard of the description of that, is that like it really just means that they could see in all directions at once.
Well, aren't these the same beings that Revelation describes, but it describes 4 different kinds of heads?
Yeah. Oh wait, no.
Or is that a different? Am I thinking of a different being?
So there are the beings that, and maybe these were the seraphim. The seraphim's a whole different. We didn't quite get into that.
Maybe that is the seraphim.
I think the seraphim are the ones that are in the throne room that are crying out, "Holy, holy, holy."
Oh, they're the ones with all the wings that are. Well, they have wings too, but
they're the ones
with
with
6
eyes all
wings.
over.
Oh,
That's what the description is. Eyes all over. I
Okay.
think that's seraphim. Either way, they're
Let us
all.
know.
Yeah, read your Bible. So
That'll be our
each
merch.
each had 4. That'd be great. Each had 4 faces, and each had 4 wings, and underneath their wings, the likeness of human hands. So under their wings, they had something that looked like human hands.
Yeah,
Maybe that just meant that their wings were basically like arms.
they kind of extended out. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they had fingers.
And yeah, and as for the likeness of their faces, they were the same faces whose appearance I had seen by the Chebar Canal. Each one of them went straight forward. Okay, well, tell us what you saw by the Chebar Canal, Ezekiel.
So secretive.
Yeah, so they had hands that looked like human hands, but we don't know what their faces look like.
Yeah,
But we do know that they had 4 faces, which makes perfect sense. So you basically have 4 wings, 4 faces.
yeah,
So you can turn in all directions and see in all directions.
yeah.
Which, if you're a spiritual guardian, probably pretty useful.
It's gonna be helpful. You can see
Yeah.
people coming.
But what a terrifying image.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? That means that like you couldn't sneak up on them,
right.
but they could probably sneak up on you.
Yeah.
So here's the thing though.
Yeah.
I would actually say that even at like in the close of this discussion, I'm not sure if the ancient serpent was a seraphim or cherubim.
It could be. Maybe it's a seraphim. Maybe it's something else.
Well, we know what it is. Like
Yeah.
the Bible says it's the ancient serpent, it's the dragon, it's the devil, it's the
Yeah.
Satan. So, but that doesn't mean that it's not a cherubim. It doesn't mean that it is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What validity or what would it value us for it to be a cherubim? Like as a question. You know what I
as
mean?
a question. I think the value is it helps us, at least for me, it helps me place it in creation. As far
Okay.
as like, what are we talking about? Let me put a face to the name.
Sure.
Does that make sense? That's kind of, for me, I think that's where I find the value of it.
Is that because of the potential non-description of the sons of God, the Ben Elohim?
Potentially.
Because I think we like to think of the council that the ancient serpent was part of the council, which we see that in Job.
Yeah.
So,
I
so
don't
we
think
see this,
we don't see that as the serpent.
the Satan,
That's another descriptor, kind of like angel.
right?
More of a job title than it is a thing.
So great thing to bring up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. But so I guess that's kind of where my mind goes with this. Like, help me make this intangible concept make a little bit more. Let me ground it as best that I can.
Yeah.
And it might not be fully able to be grounded,
Right.
but it's like helping myself point me into a direction that makes sense.
I'll say this. The ancient serpent, I like just using the Revelation language.
Yeah.
The ancient serpent in Genesis is not a garden snake.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a snake with like, it's not a reptile.
Yeah.
I mean, it potentially looks like a modern reptile, but closer to a dragon or a probably lizard more being than lizard more being. He's a great guy. a more lizard-like being. That doesn't mean that he's like the father of lizard people,
Right.
but
But they do live in the earth.
and that's true. Good point. Um,
Connections everywhere.
yeah, yeah. It's, I guess I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to do there.
I feel like every one of our episodes, here's what I've decided.
We just like randomly hint at a conspiracy.
I'm not saying that they're lizard people that live in the earth.
But read your Bible.
But I'm just saying, what if we took off some of the fake skin on these leaders? And no, I'm kidding.
Just saying, what if Men in Black was true?
Yeah, I'm just kidding, unless it's proven true. Then
Didn't they find tunnels? Yeah.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah.
I like that we don't talk or explore conspiracies. We just throw random taglines of conspiracies in.
Well, again, I think that kind of I'm about to hit another tangent. But what I will say on that is because it's like something has to come from something.
Does it?
Well, at least for us, it does.
That's true.
Let me say it that way. Let me add some context. For us, we get stuff from stuff.
Yeah, we didn't create things.
Right.
Yeah.
We just rearranged it.
Yeah.
We tried to identify it.
And even if you say, okay, well, even if you say, like, we named Adam helped God name the animals.
Mm.
So that's true. And the act of naming then was creating. He was creating with God. Well, he wasn't creating for God. God was allowing him to be part of creation.
Yeah.
He was allowing him
participate.
And even in that, he was allowing him to help bring order to what ultimately would be his to order.
Yeah.
So like in some ways, when it says that he named the animals, he's helping God create. God is teaching him how to take care of the He's teaching him, here's how you do this. Yeah. You'll need to know this because you're the one that has to take care of all this. Yeah. Yeah. So like in that way, it's like he's not creating out of nothing. Right. We don't create out of nothing. Mm-mm. No one is coming up with an idea that's never existed before. Right. That something wasn't, and let's say it is a brand new idea to humanity. Mm. It's not to the cosmos. Right. And that's that's kind of, I get that's a bold statement, but like, read your Bible.
Read your Bible. Let us know. But so here's what I've decided. Okay. Especially in the last few minutes of this being our 4th episode together. Cool. Which I think is very special. Okay. I'm glad you're doing this with me. Me too. It's been so much fun. It has. I have so much fun. But that we will never be able to do a podcast under 2 hours. Sorry. And I don't think that's a problem. I'm just saying, I just have to reset that expectation for everybody. When Steven and I are talking, it will be long, and because I think it needs to be. Because we could keep going easily. Sure. And also, it's like I think our conversations, and not just ours, but I think any conversation I've had with a guest, there's never like a full resolution at the end of it. Yeah. And I think the point of that is because it's like, well, there isn't. It sounds that simple, but it's like, it doesn't resolve because it can't. Not that it can't, but it didn't resolve. Yeah, I would say that the Bible says that the end is the Lord's. Yeah. Like, he knows beginning to end. Yeah. But he is also the beginning and the ending. Right. Right. So the ending is the Lord's. We don't get that. Yeah. And yeah. And do you know who else's dialogue never had a resolution at the end? I use dialogues as a clue. Oh no. I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna get this clue. All of our ancient philosophers, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, they always ended with someone just walking away. Oh really? Yeah, it's just kind of like they just got bored. That's it. And here we are. Yeah, it's like it never ends with any kind of resolution. Yeah. We mentioned Augustine, or Augustine,
And that is one of the biggest things that he did was bring a Platonic view into Christianity.
Yeah.
That there's a soul that animates a body.
Yeah.
For a spiritual end. That was like his breakdown. But yeah, so.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I feel like a couple episodes back when we were talking, we brought up like, oh yeah, and then that's what Augustine did. And just like didn't go into it at all.
Yeah, we beat up on him a lot. So I was like, we'll throw him a bone.
Yeah, and Constantine. Yeah.
Not that he didn't deserve getting beat up on a little bit.
Well, the crazy thing about Constantine is like Council of Nicaea. He makes Christianity the national religion of the Roman Empire who killed Jesus.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild.
And he did it in like 300 AD.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like a couple generations. Like not that long after.
Like too soon, man.
Like it took very little time for them to be like, hey, that Jesus guy we killed, I think he was right.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Like pretty crazy. But
cool.
Yeah.
So it's fun. But yeah, all this means is that we get to keep talking.
Let's do it.
And kind of like we said earlier, my hope is that these conversations, these episodes lead us to read our Bibles more.
Yeah,
because it makes me want to do that every time.
Yeah.
And I hope it makes you want to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
And don't let these conversations just stop from you listening on the podcast. Bring those into your life.
Yeah.
But I think in the way, and I learned this, and I think it's important to say is like some of the stuff which is interesting, like this spiritual worldview of the Bible that gets highlighted, that we're highlighting.
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of feel like you're better than other people, at least if you're me, because I can get haughty with information sometimes where it's like, oh, you think that? Well, what about this?
Yeah.
And it's been a humbling thing that God has done to me. Because at this point, it's like, for me, it's like, okay, well, what's helpful? And I think that's the important thing. Not everyone is in a place where this information, these conversations aren't helpful. And it's important to speak with them in a way it's like, you're not trying to hurt people. You're not trying to pull people from their faith. It's like we're having these conversations because we want to deepen our faith. We want to deepen our understanding.
Right.
And that's the intent of it. Because I want people to be excited to read the Bible. I want people to want to do that. And so we need to approach those conversations with that same motivation.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the concept of where two or three are gathered in my name is farther reaching than inside of a church, which is very important. So like being in church is super important. And if you're a person that says like, I don't actually believe that, I don't think I need to be inside of a church. Well, there's something I realized the other day that I think is it's true, or however you said that. Not like that. Truth is truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
That there are times where I can't turn my attention to the Lord. There are times where I'm tired. And if I walk into church, there's a community of believers that will do it for me. And I can benefit from their action in my inaction.
Yeah.
And their action in my inaction will strengthen my weakness and turn me back to looking up to where my help comes from. Mm-hmm. So there's that element of like, I think that's at the core of it. I think that piece of being in the assembly is something that you just can't get anywhere else. Yeah. It will carry you. Yeah. In seasons where you can't carry yourself.
True.
But two or three gathered can happen on a podcast. It can happen anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a very specific and ordained purpose to preaching in a large assembly that has to be direct and clear. Mm-hmm. And there's an opportunity in conversation in small settings for us to explore things explore the mysterious nature of God
Yeah.
that expands our faith over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think one refines the other. So I think preaching and going to church refines your exploration of the mystery of God.
Yeah.
So you can be the same way that like being out at your job or just in the world and doing other things, you can start to develop ideas or perspectives, and then you go back into church on the weekend or midweek and it realigns you back to the gospel.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think that those things can be true. So that being said, like, yeah, I think it's definitely read your Bible. It's way more interesting.
It's so interesting.
And like anything else you could read is just stealing stories from the Bible. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So hey,
Let the story continue.
let's let the story continue. And thank you guys for tuning in, for watching, for listening, however you're interacting with this. And check us out. I don't say this all the time because I always forget. But check out the Instagram. Check out the email me. My stuff's always in the description because this is a conversation we can all keep having, and let's grow this for people that want to have this conversation and want to pursue these things because it's cool.
Yeah, and I'll say this for you because I see
thanks.
people say it all the time, but you're probably listening or watching to this and not following the channel
Oh, good point.
or subscribe to it. So
Smash
do that.
those things.
So do that.
Yeah, please leave a review as well. I just thought about that.
And come hang out in this world every once in a while.
And with that, we will talk to you hopefully sooner rather than later.
Cheers.
Cheers. Doesn't have the same clink.
Spicy.